Michigan fans. Are you there?
They're out there somewhere, Kevin.
I still can't hear them. I have bad news for you, Michigan fans. Ohio State beat Syracuse 26-9.
All right, Kevin, we got 4 immortal words to say before any big race, and I'm down here with Thelma Burgess. She's been here for how many years, Thelma? 22 years. She's going to start us off here with the 4 immortal words, the 4 words that start up every one of these cars. Thelma, the Grand Marshal of this race, your duty.
Gentlemen, start your engines.
And there they go. They're ready to go. Back to you, Kevin.
And now the roar can be heard all the way to Michigan, all the way to Anderson, all the way to Jeffersonville. The 28 starters for tonight's 3-hour figure 8 endurance contest. The engines are warming up. The drivers are set, and we're ready for the 3-hour adventure that is ahead of us. Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. I'm Kevin O'Neill. Since 1982, I've been privileged to be the chief announcer at the Indianapolis Speedrome, and since 1982, I have been witness to these 3-hour endurance extravaganzas. The worlds of road racing and oval track excitement have been merged here at the Indianapolis Speedrome since 1977 in this race that they said could never be run. And every year this event grows in stature, grows in excitement, and grows in competition. Tonight, the first wave of cars is unleashed onto the Indianapolis Speedrome figure 8 course. They come from Michigan, they come from Anderson, they come from Kentucky, they come from the nation to compete here at the Indianapolis Speedrome. The best that this short track has to offer are the challenge is now being enjoined. The first wave of cars has been put off. Now the second wave of those 28 fast qualifiers is being placed into action. These are the parade laps. Those moments when the drivers in their machines can try to calm themselves down, hoping to follow in the footsteps of those that have been before them. The winners like Jim Fox, the immortal 5-time winner Kenny St. John, Wayne Arnold, who has won this event twice, Bobby Ellett, the Indianapolis Surprise, Mike St. John, the defending champion, and the invader who could win it all for the second time, Rance Harmon. But a driver to definitely be watched tonight. On the pole, fast time from the Sportstrome is Leonard Basham. He has shown tremendous power in these races before. However, sometimes when he gets in the lead, he runs into trouble before it runs into him. Will Leonard Basham show that special combination of courage, control, and speed that will bring him to the win tonight in the Indianapolis Speedrome? We will find out in 3 thrill-packed hours. Ladies and gentlemen, we ask you to please rise and salute these drivers for the last time before they are unleashed for the 3-hour event. We would like you to wave to your favorite driver as they go through the north end of the racetrack. I know that those people that came from Michigan want to salute all of their drivers from their home state. All of you that came up from Kentucky would like to salute your favorites. And those from Indiana, whether you be from Jeffersonville, from Indianapolis, from Greenwood, from Crown Point, from Newcastle, from anywhere in central Indiana, we ask you to please honor your drivers and offer them Godspeed as they prepare for the 3-hour endurance contest which is ahead of them. Now the field heads down at parade rest through the south end of the racetrack. And once again, ladies and gentlemen, please wave to these drivers and show them your respect and your honor for what they are going to do here tonight. It is a risky business. They take tremendous dangers upon themselves of their own free will as they take on the figure 8 contest of the Indianapolis Speedrome. Be sure to show them your honor and your respect as they go through the south end of the racetrack, because in a few short minutes, they will not have a chance to wave. They will have to give full concentration and coordination of what will happen here at the racetrack. The special bond between race driver and race fan is now being renewed here at the Indianapolis Speedrome, but soon that will be a memory. It will be a deep emotion that drives these guys through the 3-hour contest. There are 28 drivers on the track now, but there are 52 drivers and 52 crews who wait impatiently for their chance to take part in this race. Remember, the rules of the 3-hour figure 8 endurance contest are that the alternates will be added to the field as the race officials seed those starters that are going to be dropping out and running into problems. Now, we are getting close to the start of this race. Every time as they go through the north end of the racetrack, we watch very carefully the pace vehicle. Will it stay in front of the field, or will it peel off quickly to one side and unleash these cars? And the field is now going to be unleashed. They get the green flag in the 1988 3-hour figure-8 endurance contest. The fireworks in the air and the fireworks on the racetrack. First turn, first lap, first leader, Mike St. John. Leonard Basham attacks on the outside of turn number 3. Third position going to the number 3 of Charlie Reed. And fourth spot to the number 2, the Anderson invader, Joe McKinney. In fifth place, you have Bill Tenney Jr. The last 4 cars could be the first 4 to go one lap down as they look for space at the intersection. Those guys from Leroy Young to the number 69 of Jeff Rich now go one lap down as the leaders storm on through. Mike St. John holds on to that advantage. Second place to Leonard Basham. Charlie Reed is in third. Your fourth place driver is the car of Joe McKinney. Fifth place is Bill Tenney Jr. Sixth place is the number 50 of Dwayne Lee. In seventh place, you have the 1986 winner, Rance Harmon. Behind them, you've got a battle for the position between Jack Early in the 09 and the 54 of Bob Stute. Bob Stute is well overdue for a win here. Also going one lap down as we come down to finish the third lap and move into the second minutes of the 180 that will make up this race is the number 41 of Jim Coop. Battle for the lead. Turn number 3, lap number 3. Leonard Basham in attack formation. Comes high through number 4. Looks for a low pass through the intersection, and the leaders have to hold up for the first time tonight because of the number 10 of Scott Martin to the number 6 of Jeff Heiser. Now they come through the second turn. There's the intersection, and those 2 cars at the tail end of the lead lap are also in place. And so quickly, the battle between control and speed and survival of the intersection is being enjoined. It has been a clean race so far. We have completed 5 laps with no trouble, and those 5 laps have been punctuated by the battle between Mike St. John and Leonard Basham, who powers off of turn number 2 and takes over the lead. Mark it down. The first lead change takes place on lap number 6. At the second minute of this race, as Leonard Basham takes first place. Mike St. John now finds himself challenged with a double-barreled attack for that second spot as we see Jeff Heiser slide through the intersection and almost get caught. The double-barrel challenge for the second spot is being mounted by the number 3 of Charlie Reed and the number 2 of McKinney. It is Reed to the inside of turn number 4 that takes the spot away from Mike St. John, and running for that third spot and taking it is Joe McKinney. But no, Mike St. John comes back to the inside of the second turn of the leader's 8th lap and retakes that spot. You have 6 cars up in front that are scrambling for the lead, and Charlie Reed is the third leader of the race to the inside of the third turn of the 7th lap, but Reed has the hold of the intersection, and back in the first spot goes Leonard Basham. The lead changes count at the start-finish line. A 3-car chain reaction crash to the north end of the racetrack. We've got the number 779 of Ray Gaddis involved in that wreck. Also in the crash in turn number 3, the number 511 of Dave Miller. And now bumping into his Michigan Invader teammate is the number 54 of Bob Stute. Stute must be quick to try to get restarted as the field flies on through. Also involved in that mess and losing a lap as a result is Mike Bass, the number 02. We watch for the battle for the lead as all cars from that mess in turn number 3 have gotten disengaged, but all cars have also lost laps. The leader continues to be Leonard Basham in car number 9. Second spot is the number 3 of Charlie Reed. Third spot is McKinney. Fourth place is Mike St. John. Fifth place is Harmon. Sixth place is Bill Tenney Jr. And seventh place is the number 50 of Dwayne Lee. And eighth place, I show Rich Fenwick. I will place in ninth place the number 10, 40 of Jack Dawsey Jr. 10th place to Cecil Carr. And the first alternate is on the racetrack. Joining the track on the 11th lap of the race, and at 3 minutes and 45 seconds, you have Curtis McMurtry. The first alternate is now on the track. We move down to finish the 4th minute of this race. The leaders are in extremely heavy lap traffic. They are moving up to drivers such as Ronnie Klantz and Jeff Rich, who was the last guy to get into the top 28, and Robbie Loving, who was caught in early racetrack and is already a couple of laps down. Disabled on the racetrack after that early mess is the 09 of Gary Early. Leonard Basham continues to run up in front as we finish lap number 13, and we're midway through the 4th minute of the first hour of this 3-hour figure-8 endurance contest. Joe Lowe, at 4 minutes and 25 seconds, is placed into the race. He is the second alternate. We scan our racetrack for the leader, Leonard Basham. He finishes 14 laps in the lead. Charlie Reed is second. Third place is Mike St. John. Fourth place is Bill Tunney Jr. Fifth place is McKinney. Sixth place is Strain Lee. Seventh place is the number 14, correction, make that the number 16 of Rance Harmon. Eighth place is the number 14 of Rich Fenwick. In ninth place, I've got Bill Tunney Jr. Ninth place, I will put the number 13 of Cecil Carr. In 10th place, the number 40 of Jack Dawsey Jr. At the intersection, we see the number 8 of Curtis McMurtry running into trouble, looping through the infield, looking for a place to cut through the intersection and not finding it. Once again, as the field starts to storm through that intersection with the balance of the field in an S fashion that covers maybe half of the racetrack, and the odd man out being Jack Dandy in the J4 at the intersection when everybody else is going crossways to him and desperately looking for some intersection room. We see that Leonard Basham still has the lead. It is almost being put into the wall by the 70-79 of Ray Gaddis's number 15 of Ronnie Klontz, but he gets on through. Now there's Jack Dandy circling once again through the start-finish line area, actually starting the lap all over again because of the heavy traffic that was there. Now it's Jack Dawsey Jr., the odd man out, cutting through the intersection with the balance of the field is stuffed into one half of the lap distance here at the Indianapolis Speedrome. Side by side, battle for the lead, inside, outside, turn number 1, lap number 19. On the outside of the right-hand turns number 1 and 2 is Charlie Reed. On the inside is Leonard Basham. They cut through the heavy traffic, coming up on the slower car of Robbie Loving, trying to cut their way through. It is Charlie Reed to the inside of turns number 3 and 4, who wants to officially lead a lap for the first time tonight, and he will do so. Third leader of the night, Charlie Reed, mark it down. First place, lap number 19. Charlie Reed has first spot. Second place to the number 9 of Leonard Basham. Third place is a side-by-side battle between Mike St. John, now a nose out in front of Bill Tunney Jr. We watch as the last car that I see on the lead lap, the number 40 of Jack Dawsey Jr. is now just a few feet away from being lapped by the leaders, and they are in extremely heavy traffic. Leonard Basham may have led that last lap. Now he's caught up in traffic, dropped back to third by the inside move to the right-hand turns number 1 and 2 by Mike St. John. We move to finish the 21st lap of this event. We see that the number 7 car of Mike Champagne is running into trouble. He's having trouble getting through the intersection. Actually, he's out there to push one of his Michigan Invader friends out. Gary Early will be placed on the track. Another alternate is on the track. You've got Guy Strode at the number 30. That also should indicate that alternate Danny Turner should be there. And Jeff Heiser gets hit and almost put into the wall over here at the oval area. Into the pit area, Gary Early in the 09. 3-car crash in turn number 1. 3-car crash in turn number 1 involving one of the alternates, the number 30 of Guy Strode. And the caution is out for the first time tonight. Caution is out for the first time tonight for the crash that involved the number 30 of Guy Strode, the number 779 of Gaddis, and also the number 511 of Dave Miller. That brings out the caution for the first time tonight because Miller's car is slow to get back underway. The first yellow comes out on the 23rd lap in the middle of the 8th minute of the race. The pace car is out there to try to pick up the leader, who will be the number 3 of Charlie Reed. There are several other cars that are trying to storm and get back in front of that pace car, and one vehicle we see also going into the pit area is the number 98 of Leroy Young. So we have seen these alternates on the racetrack as the field starts to pick their way back into action, and we see the 511 of Miller going off the racetrack with a flat right rear tire. We've seen Curtis McMurtry and Joe Lowe on the racetrack. Jerry Vanderhoof is also out there, and Guy Strode, just after he came onto the track, got involved in that 3-car wreck that brought out that first caution of the race at the 7.5-minute mark of the race. Now we glance to see if Danny Turner, who is another alternate in this race, is shown on the racetrack, and that is not so. The next alternate that would be scheduled to set onto the racetrack would be Bill Clark, and he is present as well. And the next alternate who will be placed into action would be the 7th alternate, Jerry Brown, one of the Speedrome drivers. The field is now on the racetrack, and we are waiting for starters' orders to go back to green. See the first 2 rows of the restart. 3 Reed, 1 St. John, 9 Basham, and 4 Tunney. Those are your top 4 cars. The 5th place machine is the number 2 of Joe McKinney. In 6th place, you have to go some distance back to the number 13 of Cecil Carr. Then you have Leonard Basham in 16, Rich Fenwick in 14 as I see it. And those consist, along with the number 40 of Jack Dawsey Jr., unofficially the cars on the lead lap. Restart, Reed to the lead. St. John in second, side by side for third. Leonard Basham wants that runner-up spot from St. John, wants it bad, makes the difficult outside pass on the restart through turns number 1 and 2. Basham wants the lead back as they go through turns number 3 and 4 as we begin the 11th minute of this race and come down to finish the 26th lap. Your top 4 cars are nose to tail and sometimes side by side. There are 2 slower cars in the intersection, and watch out for the cross traffic. As you see Jack Dawsey Jr., who badly wants to get to the intersection. Dawsey is now in trouble. He is caught in the intersection with both of the traffic going through, and Dawsey, at this moment, gets going a lap down. He saw the number A16 car, Bobby Loving, cutting through the intersection just as the leaders went through, and it almost precipitated a crossover chain reaction crash that took out the top 4 cars. But they got through, and as we close down the 11th minute of this 3-hour race, in the first hour of this 3-hour race, and we see the number 50 of Twain Lee looping his car to the inside of the 3rd turn, bouncing over the 4th turn marker tire. We see that Charlie Reed has first spot, 2nd spot to Basham as they head northbound, crossing through the intersection, full power, just ahead of Joe Lowe and Curtis McMurtry. Almost taking out the 2 first cars because of their rush to the intersection. Now Charlie Reed gets to the intersection and is forced off this track and now runs into the rear end of the number 10 of Scott Martin. Charlie Reed was trying to come through the intersection. He saw the crossover traffic and then cut over to one side. Now Charlie Reed has got to get to the intersection. He has almost hit a second time. And Charlie Reed, because of his crossover problems, has fallen 1 lap down. Charlie Reed had the lead. Now he is 1 lap down to Leonard Basham. And Reed has to hit the brakes to get to the intersection. And now, taking advantage of the intersection situation, there's Mike St. John ducking inside of Leonard Basham in turn number 3 of the leaders. 31st lap, and Mike St. John now has first place. 2nd spot to Basham. 3rd place to Bill Tunney Jr. Unofficially, I'll put number 14 of Rich Fenwick in 4th place. Unofficially in 5th place, I'll put Joe McKinney. Unofficially in 6th place, you'll have the number 13 of Cecil Carr. I'll put in 7th place the number 16 of Rance Harmon. And unofficially, I place those drivers as the only one on the lead lap. Battle for first place, turn number 1, lap number 33. Leonard Basham inside of Mike St. John takes first spot. Attacking for 2nd place, St. John. A small crossover crash between Bob Stute and Rance Harmon. Harmon and everybody keeps on going. And Harmon Stute comes down on Leonard Basham, bumping into turn number 3. And that puts Mike St. John another 2 car lengths in front of Leonard Basham. And now to 2nd spot, you've got Bill Tunney Jr. Into the pit area, the number 30 of Guy Strode. St. John, Tunney, and Basham run 1st, 2nd, and 3rd. Charlie Reed is 4th in line as we see the number 74 of John Dawsey onto the racetrack. He is alternate number 8. Now St. John at the intersection hesitates. Past him go Tunney and Basham. And we now have our 4th leader in this race. Our 4th leader through 13 minutes and 34 laps of this race is Bill Tunney Jr. Oh, crossover crash. Curtis McMurtry and the number 69 car crash at the intersection. Ken Algren and Curtis McMurtry hit each other with a crossover, but it's a minor impact. McMurtry keeps on going. Algren's car, however, is damaged and he will limp to the pit area. That will precipitate the appearance of another alternate on this track as Algren goes off the track. Whoops, that's Murray coming back in. A car confrontation in turn number 1. Sees the car of Champagne spun the wrong way, but he backs out of the way in the field, keeps on going. Now Bill Tunney Jr. gets into Murray, who was already in that one incident, and that drops Tunney back to 2nd spot. Charlie Reed at the intersection tries to get back on the lead lap, and he passes the number 9 of Leonard Basham to get back on the lead lap. Aldridge's car is stuck in the pit exit, and trying to push him out of the way, and doing so successfully is Curtis McMurtry. Murray is in trouble. The 5'11" of Murray, whoops, I thought he was stalled at the intersection. No, he keeps on going. In the lead is Leonard Basham. 2nd place is Mike St. John. 3rd place, as I see it, is Bill Tunney Jr. In 4th place, you have to go a long way back to the number 16 of Rance Harmon. In 5th place, I will place unofficially the car of McKinney. In 6th place, I'll put Carr. In 7th place, I'll put Fenwick. And in 8th place, unofficially, on the lead lap, once again, I'll put Charlie Reed. All drivers have now been bloodied. In a sense, all drivers have had their own crossover confrontation. They've been involved in the bumping and the banging. Basham and St. John are side by side on the 40th lap of the second turn. Somebody, whoops, has a tire come loose. I'm not sure what it is. It's a marker tire or what, but we've seen a tire come peeling off a car. I'm looking at it. It appears to be a racing skin that's in the middle of the track, but if it's just a tire and not a tire and wheel, whoop, car of the leaders. One of the leaders was caught by the number 44 car. The alternate, Jerry Braun, hooked Bill Tunney Jr. Now we see that tire, which peeled off of one car, which car I don't know, is now being knocked off the track. Look at this. The tire is actually rolling toward the pit exit and trying to leave the track, but it's out of the way and will continue to run under green flag conditions. We work with, there's the tire coming back down into the area where it might get caught up in some of the cars, but again, it's just a hunk of rubber, and it's not a major factor at this point. We watch the leaders as they storm through turns number 3 and 4 of their 42nd lap. In first place is Leonard Basham by inches over Mike St. John and Bill Tunney Jr. St. John has Basham and the rest of those cars, including Charlie Reed, who has managed to get his lap back just inches ahead. Here's the sump of the cars coming through the intersections. Now we see where that tire came from. It's the right front tire off of the number 6 car, Butch Campbell. We're working down to the end of the 16th minute of the first hour of this race. And there we see John Dalsey spinning his number 74 as he came out of the exit of turn number 4. The leaders are again in very, very heavy traffic. Basham and St. John are side by side for the lead. Inside of St. John trying to take second spot, you've got Tunney, but there's no room that time. The balance of the field, all but 2 cars are in a half-lap pack that are directly in front of your leaders. How are they going to pick their way through this snarling pack of traffic? Some of which, but Basham slipped the car coming out of turn number 4. I wonder if he has some sort of problem with the machine. Let's watch Leonard Basham's number 9 very carefully because he lost control of the machine for an instant coming out of turn number 4. Basham through the intersection, putting all caution to the wind. Hal finds himself back in 3rd spot. There's a spin. Murray hit head-on by the number 6 of Jeff Heiser. Murray coming out of turn number 2, spun the car going the wrong way, and Jeff Heiser in the number 6 nailed Murray head-on. The racetrack stays under green for the moment, but there appear to be 2 disabled cars in the middle of the northbound run. Watch for the lead cars as we see John Dalsey take an extra lap. There's Leonard Basham trying to cut through the intersection. He sees the yellow. That will save him from going a lap down because he got out of sequence with everybody else. The caution comes out on lap number 46 of the leaders for the 2-car crash coming out of turn number 2. Dave Miller, I identified him as Murray, and I stand corrected. Dave Miller in car number 511, coming out of turn number 2, spun the car. He was facing the wrong way on the exit of turn number 2. Jeff Heiser in the number 6 came around and hit Miller head on. So this is going to require a yellow, a fairly long one, to clean up the track and tow these 2 disabled cars away. This caution is good news for 2 drivers who had gotten out of sequence with the leaders. One of them being Leonard Basham, who had lost control of his car for an instant coming out of turn number 2 and fallen the better part of a lap behind the leaders. The other one, Charlie Reed in the number 3, who, remember, got caught up in crossover traffic and fell 1 lap down, then managed to get his lap back. We are 18.5 minutes into the 180 minutes that will make up this 3-hour figure 8 endurance championship. And the leaders, under caution, under control of the pace vehicle, are moving to finish their 48th lap of this contest. So far, we have had 4 leaders of this race. An unusually competitive race, even for the standards of the 3-hour figure 8 endurance contest. leaders of this race are once again set and poised for a starting formation. Now, ladies and gentlemen, as we see the last of our cars of that crash being towed away, Miller's number 511, we have some cleanup work to do over there. In NASCAR Winston Cup racing, you have heard of the tire war between Hoosier and Goodyear. Note that the majority of the cars at the race tonight are running on Goodyears, but there are 2 drivers and 2 cars of note which are running on Hoosier tires tonight. One of them is Leonard Basham in the 9, the other one Rance Harmon in the number 16. There is also another driver who has got an interesting combination of tires, 2 Hoosiers and 2 McCreary's, and that's Kent Krimmel. Other than that, the balance of the field is running on Goodyears. We see that one car is back onto the racetrack. That is the car number 6, one of our starters, Butch Campbell, one of the Anderson drivers that who is here with us tonight. He lost a tire, not a wheel, but a tire, and that was the rubber that we saw flopping around here for a few laps. Campbell will wait for a potential opening in the crossover. However, he may be overwhelmed here in a second because we will turn these guys loose when there is no problem on the racetrack. 2, 4, 6, 8, 10, 12, 14, 16, 18, 20, 2, 4, 6, 8, 30. I count 32 cars on the track right now. I count 32 machines out there. We have already gone down through John Dawsey, and yes, Eddie Deal is out there. So Eddie Deal makes the 9th alternate, meaning that we have had ourselves 37 cars that are eligible to run in this track. Now, you saw what Butch Campbell did, cutting, and instead of coming across the start-finish line, making a turn, that does not count as a completed lap. When you go into the pit area, you must count that as simply going through turns number 3 and 4. On the break, Bill Tunney Jr. has the lead. Mike St. John is in second as the field goes over the cement dust that we put down to pick up the water for the first time. Third place is Leonard Basham, who comes down to challenge Mike St. John and pass him on the power move going into the first turn of the 51st lap for second place. I show in 4th place Rance Harmon, his best performance of the night. Watch out, Rance. There's the number 816 car, Robbie Loving, and you have to watch out for him all the time. Now we've got 2, 3 cars at a crash in turn number 4. One of them now disengages is Bob Stute. You've got the number 15 of Ronnie Clons. The number 8 of Curtis McMurtry gets going again, but the driver who is having the problems with this one is Mike Champagne in the number 7, who's in his second wreck of the night or so. Also almost crashing into each other, the 779 of Gaddis and the number 6 car of Campbell, and at the intersection it's very tight. Crossover crash involving one of the lead lap cars, the number 13 of Cecil Carr, who was fairly gently hit by the number 98 of Leroy Young. Both of those cars get disengaged. There is no further reason for a caution. Although I do believe that Cecil Carr's lost the lead lap. In any case, he is pulling into the pit area. We watch the battle for the lead through an intersection that's crowded for a second. It is Bill Tunney Jr. in first. Your second place car is Leonard Basham. Third place is Rance Harmon. Oh, look at the crowded crossover. Can they get through? Just barely. In 4th place, about a turn back for the leaders, is Mike St. John. Whoops, somebody is not moving. We see the number 44 car, that's Danny Gaddis, who is having trouble getting going as Charlie Reed and Jack Danny almost take each other out in the intersection. There are 2 or 3 cars stopped at the crossover. Here come your second pack of leaders. Mike St. John is forced off his line by those cars stopped at the intersection, and he has to repeat the north loop and is now almost a lap down. Bump and run action. Rance Harmon, 1986 champion, takes the lead from Bill Tunney Jr. And big crossover crash between the number 40 of Jack Dawsey Jr. and Jim Coop. Coop's car in a side swipe is tossed into the air. Coop comes down on all 4 tires and drives off, and with substantial damage to the back end of the car, you've got Jerry Brown. Now we catch our breath for an instant and take stock of what is on the racetrack. The leader is Rance Harmon. He is the 5th leader in the first half hour of this race. The second place car is Leonard Basham. Boom, at the intersection, we watch out for number 09 of Gary Early, who just barely gets through. At the intersection, almost a big crash between the leader, Rance Harmon, and the number 15 of Ronnie Klotz. Every time we try to set the field, as we see, look, Leonard Basham hit and taken out by the number 50 of Dwayne Lee. Leonard Basham's bad luck at the Indianapolis Speedrome has struck again. Basham was trying to make an outside pass of Dwayne Lee to stay up with the leaders, but instead he is hit by Dwayne Lee, and Basham, with a flat left front tire, storms into the pits for a final tire change. So Leonard Basham's bad luck at the Indianapolis Speedrome once again strikes in that dangerous half hour. Who is in the lead now? We show the leader as being Bill Tunney Jr. with Charlie Reed. Whoops, the leader would not be Bill Tunney Jr. Let's chase him down. It would be the number 16 of Rance Harmon. And if I'm not mistaken, Harmon has just put Mike St. John a lap down. Yes, Mike St. John, who had been caught in the North Loop and forced to repeat it because of crossover traffic, has just been lapped. As I see it, your second place car is in doubt. It is Charlie Reed for the moment, who has that runner-up position ahead of Bill Tunney Jr. Then for third spot, I believe those are the only three drivers that are on the lead lap at this point of the race. So 61 laps of this event have been completed. We are moving into the 27th minute of the first hour of the race, and it is Leonard Basham in first. I see second place as Charlie Reed, and third place is Bill Tunney Jr. There are several drivers who had been on the lead lap that have dropped a lap or so down. But remember, in this endurance contest, a one-lap distance is not that big. Let's look at those drivers that had been in the lead lap and ran into trouble. There was a collision involving the number 13 of Cecil Carr. He's back on the racetrack, but he's lost several laps. The number J2 car of Joe McKinney, who has been running very smoothly, has lost laps, as has Leonard Basham, who was very aggressive but got caught up in a crash going into turn number 3. He had a cut tire and has replaced that Hoosier on the left front, goes back onto the racetrack, but he has lost several laps to the leaders. Now let's take a look at keep track of our alternates. We see that we now have the number 87 of Danny Turner on the track. We're glancing on the racing surface for the George Sutton number 55. We look around for it, we don't see it, however. The next alternate would be eligible to be Dan Gaddis in the number 44 car. Back on the racetrack for the first time in several minutes after his earlier race problems, the number 69 car of Ken Aldred. At the intersection, watch out. Most of the field is storming on through. Now, here are your three of the drivers that have been battling for the lead are in a group of cars that are headed northbound. One of them is Mike St. John. St. John, who is now the fourth place car, has managed, as I see it, has managed to get back around Rance Harmon and get his lap back. Some bumping and banging in turn number 3 involving a slow car, the number 84 of Donnie Garrigus, the 12th alternate, who is caught up in some sort of conflict. Almost a crash in the intersection between Bill Tunney Jr. and the number 8 of Curtis McMurtry. Another one of those typically terrifying figure 8 crossover moments. Once again, let's try to set things. As you have noticed, sometimes, a car that has himself some problems, I think that's Jack Dawsey Jr., no, it's Bill Clark in the 86, who has cut down a left front tire, and sparks flying will pull into the infield. You may have noticed what appears to be a disjointed announcing style that we have. It is not because of any confusion, it is because of the dynamics of the action on the racetrack. There are few moments in this figure 8 endurance contest when there is not something of major importance that is happening. And when that happens, we, instead of trying to set the lineup or set the standings, will interrupt our call of the race and describe to you what is happening. One of those items is Joe Jackson moving onto the racetrack in the number 11. We also have on the racetrack the number 814. B14 of Ben Benedict, who was off the track for a few minutes. Bill Tunney Jr. comes to the intersection very carefully. So once again, let us try and set the lineup here. The leader is Rance Harmon in the number 16. The second place car is the number 3 of Charlie Reed. In third place, I have Bill Tunney Jr. in the number 4. The fourth place machine cutting through the intersection and finding a tiny gap is the number 1 of Mike St. John. As I see it, those cars are the only ones on the lead lap. 3 cars have collided coming out of turn number 2. Danny Turner in 87, Jeff Rich in 69X, and the 27 of Eddie Deal. They have slowed over on the west side of the racetrack trying to get started. Also, there's a spin over in turn number 3. 3 cars are taken up in that one, and Mike St. John has to be careful to get out of its way. One of them is the number 844, one of our alternates, Dan Gaddis, and Bill Tenney Jr. was caught up in that one in the number 4. Apparently he has himself a flat tire, yes. One of the drivers on the lead lap. Oh, there's Jack Danny in the intersection, almost taking a wrong turn, almost crashing out the number 816. Of Robbie Loving. So Bill Tenney Jr., one of your lead contenders, has a flat tire as a result of a confrontation on the track, and he is taken out of the lead lap. So as I see it, there are 3 cars left on the lead circuit after 30 1/2 heart-pounding minutes. We have to do this, folks, 5 more times to finish 3 hours. And Rance Harmon in the middle of that section puts him a lap down again. Been given a piece of paper that has some stuff scribbled on. Let's see. Okay, here's the better idea of doing it. Again, at 50 laps, now we're at 76 laps right now, but at 50 laps, this is the way they stood. The leader had been Mike St. John. Well, this is really considerably dated. Mike St. John was the leader after 50 laps. Leonard Basham was second, and the number 3 of Charlie Reed was third. 4th place was the number 4 Bill Tenney Jr. But the dynamics of this race have completely changed that. Now Rance Harmon is the leader, and he has Mike St. John in his sights, almost 1 lap down to St. John. The second place driver, about a quarter of a lap back, is Charlie Reed, and in 3rd place, last car on the lead lap as I see it, is St. John. Upside down. Let's get the number of that car as the race goes red. The number 7 of Champagne. It is the number 7 of Mike Champagne. The car has been hit and flipped upside down. I presume that it was in a crash with the number 69X of Jeff Rich. The race goes red because of an upside down crash at 31 minutes and 46 seconds of this race. Of the car, bit by bit, is the driver, Russ Champagne. He is flat on his back on the racetrack, but he is out of the machine. And notice that the Michigan drivers stick together. The first to stop at the intersection and help his friend was Ken Algren. And the driver is out of his car, and okay. A terrifying moment at the intersection. The car of the second-generation driver, Mike Champagne, in contact with another machine in collision at the intersection, which sent that car in a slow roll. Champagne over to talk to his friend, Ken Algren, and they share that special bond among race drivers. They are tough competitors during the week, but they are very close compatriots when there is potential danger. We officially completed 77 laps and were 31 minutes and 46 seconds into the race before the red flag came out. Ladies and gentlemen, the driver now has his helmet off. You can show your appreciation that he is okay by your cheers now. And like all race drivers who share something special in this event, Mike Champagne stops to make sure that his car is okay and that it'll be turned back onto its wheels. Remember, there is always the chance that if this car has not been significantly damaged and if it can pass the inspection of the United States Auto Club, folks, there's always the outside chance it can get back onto the racetrack. But that's going to take a very careful inspection of the roll cage to make sure that it is race-worthy. And slam it on its wheels. doesn't look too bad, does it? Second place driver, Charlie Reed. The third place driver, who's Mike St. John. By number 50 of Dwayne Lee, was coming back onto the track to stay 2 laps down, but he pulled back into the pit area. So he will go even further behind everybody else. So again, our unofficial re-reckoning of the circumstances are that Rance Harmon is the leader, and you'd have Mike St. John in second spot. The only 2 cars unofficially on the lead lap. Green flag restarts the race. We see that the number 16 of Rance Harmon has been passed by the number 13 of Cecil Carr. Carr getting one of his laps back, because remember, Cecil was one of those drivers that stayed on the lead lap for the early stages of the race. Here's the 23 of Kenny Payne onto the racetrack. Kenny Payne is the 15th alternate. Due next on the track would be Ron Cross. Look at the situation where we have Charlie Reed. Remember, Charlie has been reported to us in the tower as being 2 laps down. This is an extremely long race, and it is not inconceivable that Reed could get his laps back. Jeff Heiser, the number 6, is back on the track. Heiser was the 21st fastest qualifier. He was involved in the head-on crash with Dave Miller earlier in the event, and now has had the front end of that car fixed. Charlie Reed has caught up to Rance Harmon. This is an important moment in the race. Charlie Reed is trying to pass Harmon and get one of his 2 laps back. Reed looks down low through turns number 1 and 2. He is challenging Harmon to get within 1 lap of the leader. The crossover is densely crowded, and Rance Harmon bounces off the machine of Joe Lowe. In turn, Lowe's machine is pushed by the bouncing Harmon in front of Charlie Reed, which blunts his attempt to get back on the lead lap. But it is Joe Lowe that is the odd man out, because he has a flat left rear tire, and that will force Lowe to leave the track for a replacement. Mike St. John in the middle of this big pack of traffic is the only other driver that we unofficially, watch out, Jack Dandy almost taking out Bill Tenney Jr. in the intersection. As I mentioned, Joe Lowe is moving into the track, into the pit area for fresh rubber. At the intersection, Charlie Reed is almost hit by the number 98 of Leroy Young and the number 9 of Leonard Basham. But Reed carries his speed through 3 and 4 to continue to try to get one of his 2 laps back for the number 16 of Rance Harmon. We move into the 35th minute of this 180-minute race. Turns number 3 and 4, coming down to finish the 86th lap for Rance Harmon and the 84th lap for Charlie Reed. Reed down to the inside. He looks at Harmon's tail end. There is no passing room available there. The field goes northbound. The 4 cars that make up what you might call our lead pack, although 2 of those drivers, Dandy in the 4 and the number 69 of Algren, are some distance back. Reed and Harmon cut through the intersection, and again, Dandy and Algren are right on their tails. Even as we come down and finish the 35th minute of this race, we are still in the early stages of this event. And as Charlie Reed seriously challenges to get one of his 2 laps back from Rance Harmon, it is still an early stage of this event. And all of these cars that you see out here are still serious contenders for the win in this event, which is an endurance contest. We've got the number 86 of Bill Clark in a spin at the north end of the racetrack. And his car is more than a bit, no, he finally gets it backed out of the way. Charlie Reed, through this dynamics of cutting through the lap traffic, has now fallen another 3 lanes behind Rance Harmon as they come through the intersection looking for racing room. Look, the number 4 Jack Dandy cuts through the intersection, a hard left turn, and that forced Bill Tenney Jr. almost into a crossover crash with the number 6 of Jeff Heiser. Jeff is back up to speed after his earlier crash with Murray. And where does this lead Harmon and Reed? They are still running nose to tail as they cut through this very heavy traffic laterally and longitudinally. Through 3 and 4, Harmon, the leader, comes down to finish his 91st lap as we're in the middle of the 37th minute of this race. Harmon does some bumper tag with the number 30 of Guy Strode. Reed finds himself still about 6 lanes behind Harmon. Reed is trying to get one of his 2 laps back, but has been unsuccessful so far. Now there's a spin out. There's the car of Murray spinning out Ron Cross, who is sideways to the entire field as they head southbound and almost getting into the number 3 of Charlie Reed. Now a machine has spun and is facing the wrong way. That's Lard Luck Leonard Basham, who loses even more ground. And 2 cars have crashed in turn number 3. One of them is Bill Clark at his second encounter at the north end of the racetrack. The other one who gets restarted, I believe, was the car of Stutz, the number 844 of Dan Gaddis, rather. You cannot catch your breath when you announce one of these races, because just when you think things are going to calm down, they get exciting again. There is an overwhelming dynamic of action in this race that is unmatched just about anywhere else in the sport. You cannot relax, whether you are calling this race, and certainly not when you are driving in it. The story that we concentrate on now is the attempt by Charlie Reed to get one of his laps back from Leonard Basham. And if I am not mistaken, through that last series of confrontations, Charlie Reed got one of his laps back. Let's take things into account at the intersection where you almost have a big confrontation between Murray and Dandy and about a half dozen other guys. At the intersection, we see Charlie Reed almost collide with the number 13 of Cecil Carr, and as a result, that sends those cars slewing all over the racetrack. Here's what we get from our scorers. Let's try to interpret these numbers for you. The leader in number 16 is Leonard Basham, and the second place driver would be 1 Mike St. John. Depending on where he is in relation to Rance Harmon, either 1 lap down, as it was a moment ago, or now 2 laps down. In 3rd place is Charlie Reed. In 4th place had been the number 50 of Dwayne Lee, but as you see, Lee is no longer on the racetrack. So I would put in 4th place now Bill Tenney Jr. 3 laps down. 5th place, I would put Jack Dandy in the 4J 3 laps down. Then the number 14 of Rich Fenwick 4 laps down. And the number V14 of Ben Benedict, who is 4 laps down as well. You see that the field is 2 and 3 and 4 cars abreast as they go into the turns. Hitting the first turn wall and bringing up some sparks is Ronnie Clance, but he keeps on going. Again at the intersection, you see that Rance Harmon is ahead of Charlie Reed, meaning that Reed is again 2 laps down. Reed comes down through the start-finish line area and heads through turns number 3 and 4 in pursuit of Harmon, trying to get one of his laps back. At the intersection, there are cars that are 3 and 4 and 5 wide. Some charge through the intersection in full power, completely unsighted. It's a jammed-up gridlock mix. Some drivers are going through at full power. Others are holding up, trying to save themselves. And as Rance Harmon has to stop to keep from getting into Jack Dandy, we see that Charlie Reed has again got one of his laps back. It is Miller that has stopped in the northbound direction. It is Joe Jackson that stopped southbound. It's completely crammed up. As you see, Harmon, the leader, is caught in a pile of traffic, but Charlie Reed is out of traffic and running free. And I believe that Miller's car is stalled. It is not moving, and he is hit by Bill Tenney Jr., who is speared from the rear by the number 44A car of Gaddis. Built and also involved in that mess this was Charlie Reed. Oh, Bill Tenney Jr.'s car, broken front suspension, disabled. An earlier leader of this race can now not even get the car to turn in a direction that will get him into the pit area. Bill Tenney Jr. is forced, because of the broken front suspension part, to back his car into the pit area. And the crew members are there impatiently awaiting the chance to get that machine repaired. Indications are that Bill Tenney Jr. not only has a broken suspension, but perhaps something else is wrong with that car as he backed it into the pit area. The entire Tenney family swarms over that car trying to repair it. We are under caution. Mike St. John makes a quick move into the pit area for his stop. And where is the leader? Rance Harmon finds himself in first spot. Now, I think that Charlie Reed got one of his laps back in all of that mess. And we have seen this pattern before. There's a driver in Winston Cup racing named Earnhardt who has made a career of getting laps back. This guy named Earnhardt has come from a couple of laps down to win races. Now, again, this is unofficial. We're still waiting for confirmation from scoring, but unofficially, my indications are that Charlie Reed has gotten back one of his 2 laps. Now we are inspecting the J2 car of McKinney. We are going to bring that car out and check to see if there is some sort of leak there. He has been ordered into the pits. The indications are that there is something that is leaking from McKinney's car. Look closely at the pavement where McKinney is currently sitting. Now he pulls away, and yes, there is a trail of fluid. There is a patch of fluid from directly underneath where the engine had been. And yes, you can see a trail of fluid that would also come from McKinney's car. So another one of the drivers that had a serious chance and had to be considered a favorite to win this race. And that is the sort of dark trail that from a distance indicates oil. Here are the standings now as we go into the 103rd lap of the race. First, an important point. Mike St. John went in for a pit stop. The car has not yet reappeared. St. John had been in second place. By our scores, he had been 1 lap down. Now, if St. John does not get onto the racetrack right now, Charlie Reed will go through, complete another lap, and move into second spot. And that is obviously now going to be the case as the pit exit has been closed. The leader is Rance Harmon in number 16. Second place will be Charlie Reed, who is shown by the scorers as still 2 laps down. I believe that's the circumstance. In third place, now 2 laps down, will be Mike St. John. Fourth place would have been McKinney, but he now loses a lap because of his being sent to the pit area. And we will move unofficially into fourth place to number 14 of Rich Fenwick, who will be scored as 4 laps down. See the number 11 car of Joe Jackson has been sent into the pit area. He was pushed off the track. We have been told from the pit area from United States Auto Club inspectors that the crankshaft in Mike St. John's engine has broken and he is out of the contest. We see that Bill Tenney Jr. returns to the track. They have reassembled the front end of that car as best as they can, but he has lost laps. gets set for another start of the race. Rance Harmon, for the moment, would appear to be in the driver's seat, but again, Charlie Reed is shown on our scoring as 2 laps down. Apparently, the dynamics and the interplay between one car and another, Reed is still 2 laps down. Again, by the standards of this race, as we get set for the restart, that is not a big gap back from first to second place. And the Sportsdrome drivers are doing extremely well. Leonard Basham is the leader. As we get set for the restart, we see that the machine of Robbie Loving gets a lap back from the leader, who is the number 16 of Rance Harmon, as we pull him back to green again. Harmon has a 2-lap advantage over Charlie Reed. He has a 4-lap advantage over Rich Fenwick. He has 5 laps on Jack Dandy. And he has 6 laps on Scott Martin. There are 2 drivers that had been contenders of the race that have dropped out, one of them being Mike St. John, and we also saw Joe McKinney, the Anderson driver, pull into the pit area after an oil leak from his car. Harmon continues to lead. Charlie Reed moves up once again to attack to try to get one of his 2 laps back. That is now the pattern of this race. Reed has inside position on Harmon going through turns number 3 and 4. This is a battle for Charlie Reed to get one of his laps back. For the moment, he has done it. He looks at the intersection and holds up because of the car of Jack Dandy. And that slows up both of those machines who are at the front of the field. Again, clearing the second turn. There is the intersection. There is Dandy, but neither driver lifts. And Charlie Reed has inside advantage and gets one of his 2 laps back. Now they come out of number 4, and it is Harmon that uses the power, and Reed that swerves to one side to keep from hitting Dandy. Reed very high through turns number 1 and 2. Harmon down to the inside. He is on his 110th lap. Again to the intersection. They go. There's the 69 of Algren tiptoeing through the intersection, and once again Reed has the advantage through 3 and 4 and gets one of his laps back from Harmon. Also in the middle of that one, oh, Dandy almost clipped Charlie Reed going through the turn, and almost bumping into Reed is the number 9 of Leonard Basham. He's the interloper in this battle to get a lap back. Now the guy in the crosshairs of this lead group, as we see Jolo spin, is the number 15 of Ronnie Klotz. Reed again has his lap back. There's Dandy hitting and spinning out the number 74 of John Dawsey. And the collision carries both cars into the southbound traffic. Dandy gets out of the way. Dawsey is not moving. And now it's a 4-car chain reaction crash in turn number 1. One of them is the 02 car of Mike Bass. The 41 machine of Koopa's involved, along with the number 69 car of Jeff Rich. And the caution once again is displayed. Okay, now, what we have to see here now is, yet there goes Charlie Reed. I think Reed got one of his laps back, and if that is so, then Reed should be placed around the pace car and be allowed to make him his lap, if he got his lap back. What's the ruling from the officials? We'll have to sit back and wait. Checking with our scores again, the information is that the leader of the race is Rance Harmon as we get set for the restart. Second place a lap down is Charlie Reed. In third place would be the number 14 of Rich Fenwick. Fourth place would be Jack Dandy. Fifth place Scott Martin. Sixth place would be Leonard Basham, and seventh place Bill Tunney Jr. Both Basham and Tunney are 9 laps down. Martin is 6 laps down. Dandy is 5 laps down. Fenwick would be 4 laps down, and the car of Charlie Reed would be 2 laps down. Out of the race, Mike St. John and Joe McKinney. To the conclusion shortly of the first hour of this 3-hour race, we see that more alternates have come onto the track. We've seen Ron Cross and Mike Burgess on the track. We're glancing now to see if John Abney is there, and he is, and Bill Frazier is on the track. So that means we have now gone through 19 of the 52 alternates in this race. And 47 drivers have been given a chance to race. Going through the first and second turns of the leader's 119th lap. Oh, big trouble. The number 69 machine of Kenneth Algren has lost the entire tire on the left rear. And that tire is now bounced, and it is careening toward the field. Let's see what happens to that wheel. Here's a potentially dangerous situation, but now it is just flopping over on its side, and Charlie Reed has to watch out that he doesn't get caught up in that thing as he again tries to make up the last lap that he has before he gets back to green. Reed warily enters the intersection and comes out in one piece on the other side. Remember, Leonard Basham is trying to put Reed 2 laps down, and Reed is trying to get back on the lead lap. He has to pass Rance Harmon twice, wants to get on the... Oh, Charlie Reed's car is broken! Charlie Reed's car has broken, and he is pulled into the pit area. It would appear that Reed's charge to get back on the lead lap has sapped the strength of his car. 20th alternate, Chris Linkis is now on the track. The 21st alternate will be Ken Carpenter, and he is also on the track, which means that Charlie Oakes is now staged and ready to go. The number of challengers to Rance Harmon continues to diminish. One by one, they drop out of the race. Here is one of those earlier contenders, the number 50 of Dwayne Lee, who comes onto the racetrack, looks for a hole to cut through the intersection, and finds that there is nothing there. The number 13 of Cecil Carr is now off the track. He is pulled into the pit area. And more, Rance Harmon looks like a driver who may have this race by the throat. But as we move into the 56th minute of the first hour of this race, even though we've had 5 leaders of this event, you never know what's going to happen. So with the departure of Charlie Reed, of Mike St. John, of Joe McKinney, of so many of the contenders in this race, the leader is Rance Harmon. And I see the second place car to now be the number 14 of Rich Fenwick, who is 4 laps down. are two cars that are headed in the southbound direction that are stalled. One of them is the 5 of Bill Frazier. The other one is the number 69 of Jeff Rich. Rich is waving his arms as if his car is stalled. Here comes the field, charging at full power to the back of Jeff Rich's car. Some of them are unsighted. Some of them can't see that machine. They're splitting right. They're splitting left. They're trying to get out of the way, and the yellow flag has now come out. There are two stalled cars in the middle of the southbound lanes. One of them is Bill Frazier's number 5. The other one is Jeff Rich's number 69. And for those stalled cars, the yellow flag has been displayed again. To our good friend Bobby, we'll be very glad to give put the tire over here. Actually, what we ought to do is to give it back to Ken Algren, but we'll put it for safekeeping. Along the laps down with his problems, now he has dropped out of the race and may not return. Joe McKinney with an oil leak is out of the race. Bill Tenney Jr. in a couple of spins and a crash that put him in the pits for several laps. He has now dropped back. Dwayne Lee has had his problems and he's dropped back. Jack Dandy has been all over the track, but somehow he is still running. The only guy that I can think of that has driven like Jack Dandy in this recent series of figure 8 races has been the immortal Louie Allen. The restart is underway. Notice how Rance Harmon always takes his time as he gets to the restart. I'm sure by now that Harmon gets, look who is back on the track. It is Mike Champagne. That car only a few minutes ago was upside down. Mike Champagne showing the determination that has made the Michigan drivers world famous, has brought that number A7 car back on the track. You can't stop these guys. To go back to our earlier attempt to analyze the action, I'm sure that by now Rance Harmon realizes that the bulk of his competitors have left the track, as we see the number 6 car, Butch Campbell, pull into the infield at the south end of the racetrack, and apparently he is having car problems that has taken him out. Charlie Reed has now rejoined the race, but he has lost something in the range of 10 laps, I would think. So Charlie Reed is back in the race, and again, at this point of the event, it does have a chance of winning. Oh, Charlie Reed has probably taken himself out once too often. He collided side by side with the number 50 of Dwayne Lee, and now he comes down and hits the number 30 of Guy Strode, leaving Lee to limp off the track with a flat right front tire. Again, folks, we are not making this up. Everything is happening. Well, there's a big shower of sparks from the number 779 car of Gaddis. We were looking at the left front of that car, and there was something there that broke and sent a shower of sparks onto the racetrack. Now Robbie Loving is in trouble. He has hit somebody, has broken the front end of that car, and he is trying to limp that machine back into the pit area. And what is that I just now see for the first time? It's a Pepsi can that's kind of bolted to the top of that car. As Robbie Loving is trying to get that car. Oh, there's Joe Lowe in front of the field, almost taking himself and a dozen other cars out of the way. As I was saying, Robbie Loving is desperately trying to get that car back to the pit area, but the front end is broken and he simply can't get the steering lock. We are now into the second hour of the race. We have completed 1 hour and 1 minute. 1 hour and 1 minute of the 3-hour figure 8 endurance contest. The leader was Rance Harmon. Speedrome scoring tells us that he has a 4-lap advantage over the second place car of Rich Fenwick, that he has 9 laps on Jack Dandy in the 4J, and that he has 10 laps on the number 9 of Leonard Basham. Once again off the pace. Mike Champagne waiting for an open part in the infield before he can get his car going through the crossover. There's Dawsey off the track, and poor Robbie Loving is doing every trick in the book to try to get that car rolling so he can get into the pit area and get the front end repaired. So through all of this, where is your leader? He's is headed down to finish his 138th lap as Loving finally gets the car off the track. Leonard Basham and Charlie Reed are having themselves a whale of a race. As far as I can tell, it's not for position. Basham probably has about 5 laps on Charlie Reed, but these guys are having themselves a slam-bang shootout. Charlie Reed is looking to the inside of Leonard Basham to try to just pass him. Oh, there's a big crash in turn number 3. It is getting even bigger as the leaders come on through as Basham and Reed just barely tap a tire. It is Champagne, Scott Martin, Dandy, the number 37 of John Connor, the 31 of Larry McIntyre, and the 75 of Chris Linkus, along with one other car that I can't identify until I put the glasses on. Oh, Mike Burgess almost ran into the wall trying to avoid the crash. That other car was the number 87 of Danny Turner. Everybody is out of the way from that, except for Scott Martin, who is not moving. Scott Martin is there, dead in the water on the entrance to turn number 3. Scott Martin's car is not budged an inch as we see the car of Jeff Heiser move out of the way. Here's the entire field charging down towards Scott Martin's car. He is in big, big danger as the field charges on through. Cecil Carr almost hits the wall, and now the yellow flag is displayed. So the yellow comes out once again at the Indianapolis Speedrome. The field moves up almost to racing speed as they try to catch back up. Now Scott Martin, because his car is stalled again, has been ordered into the pit area. The United States Auto Club inspectors will now go over that car and make sure that it is properly repaired so it can start by itself instead of stalling again. We are starting the 5th minute of the 2nd hour of the Indianapolis Speedrome 3-hour figure 8 endurance contest. Thus far, we have had 5 different leaders of this race, but all of those leaders, save one, have run into substantial problems on the racetrack, mostly in the form of collisions and spins and blocked crossover traffic. Leonard Basham led this race for a while, then he was involved in a collision that forced him to the pit area. Mike St. John led, and then a broken crankshaft took him out of the race. Charlie Reed was involved in a couple of crashes and mechanical problems, and he has dropped back. Bill Tunney Jr. was caught up in traffic, and then he had a broken front end. His car has been in and out of the pits a couple of times. We glance and see that the machine is stationary in the pit area once again, which has led 1986 champion Rance Harmon as the sole one of those guys that have been. We do not see that car on the track right now. We've also seen John Connor on the track. I'm glancing for Billy Allen's number 77, and we don't see it right now. We do know that we've seen John Connor on the track, which would open up the pretty soon appearances for Vertikovsky and others. Yet another restart as we move into the 8th minute of the 2nd hour of this race. And once again, Cecil Carr finds himself racing with the car of Rance Harmon. Harmon lets him go, as well as Charlie Reed. I'm sure that Charlie is persuaded if the yellows keep on coming as they do, that he'll be able to get some laps back and maybe win the race. And that's not out of the question. Speaking of winners, we had talked about those drivers that had the possibility of winning this race. One of them was Joe McKinney in the J2. He lost a lot of ground because of the oil leak. He is back on the racetrack. I'm sure that the race officials, as usual, will be keeping a close watch on him to make sure that car is race-worthy. Through the intersection, Charlie Reed picks a hole through. Oh! Watch out, Joe Lowe almost took out Leonard Basham at the intersection, way off the beaten path, too. Charlie Reed to the intersection, finds a gap between Leroy Young and Rich Fenwick. Leonard Basham waits up for Jim Coop. And in the middle of this, taking it very easy, watching Rance Harmon. He is in the middle of a very tight pack of cars. Paging Rodney Irvin to the tower, paging Rodney, oh, watch out, 3-car crash at the intersection. Jim Coop coming through, got into the number 87 of Danny Turner, and forced Turner into the number 3 of Charlie Reed. All 3 cars keep on going. Coop into the pit area, Reed and Turner still on the racetrack, and we see in the infield, Jeff Heiser trying to get his car back up to the speed. Paging Rodney Irvin to the tower. Paging Rodney Irvin to the tower. Paging Rodney Irvin to the tower. Again, paging Rodney Irvin to the tower. Clark getting hit perhaps by the aid of Curtis McMurtry and spun out. Clark has a shredded tire on the left rear, and he will limp his machine back to the pit area as soon as the traffic will allow it. At the front end of your pack, we have Leonard Basham. Also there, the number 13 of Cecil Cars. We see Bill Clark now limping his car back into the pit area. Rance Harmon is in that odd situation where he can kind of take it easy. I say kind of in only a slight sense, because as we see the number 111 of Al Grindy moving onto the track, he is the 27th alternate. Oh, crossover crash. It's the number 779 of Ray Gaddis involved with another machine, which I believe is Jack Dandy, and both cars get disengaged with some damage, mainly to bodywork, and they keep on going. And now Joe Lowe has stuffed his car head on into the wall coming through turn number 3. The approach to the turn number 3, he has gotten the car into the wall. Now we see that Joe Lowe has taken his helmet off inside the car for some reason. I guess he's trying to get the car off the wall and into the pit area, but the traffic is running directly at the tail end of his car, including Vertikowski, one of the alternates, who is now onto the racetrack. Joe Lowe now drives his machine off the track and into history. We see that a guy that is very close to getting into the way of everybody else is the car of Jerry Brown, but he now crawls his machine out of the way. Also the number A44 car. That's the machine of the younger Gaddis, is trying to tiptoe through the infield and just now does so. And Gaddis is going once again. And as happens so often in this race, the balance of the field is stuffed into one half of the racetrack. The leader of the pack for the moment, but not the leader of the race, as we see the car of Joe McKinney getting hit and spun into the infield along with the number 23 of Kenny Payne. The leader of this particular pack is the number 9 of Leonard Basham. Following into an infield that is very crowded is the number 4J of Jack Dandy. At the tail end of this group is Al Grindy in the number A111 car. We also see that Steve Ryder, well, there's a collision between Basham and Dandy. As Basham carries Dandy's car, Basham almost crashes into the main stretch oval wall head on as that collision has cut down the left rear tire of Basham's car. It's another collision that sends Basham into the pit area for repairs. And yet again, the balance of the field is stuffed into one half of the racetrack. Speedrome scoring gives us this top 3. Crash in turn number 4. Charlie Reed in the number 3. And Ben Benedict in the V14 have hit each other in turn number 4. They keep on going. Spun into the infield is the number 98 of Leroy Young. Back onto the racetrack is the number 4 Bill Tenney Jr. And we see that Charlie Reed is off the racetrack with a flat right rear tire. Somebody has deposited a white hood on the racetrack. Let's put some glasses on it and see if we can find out what hood that is before it gets run over. It says 69 Jeff Rich, and it's not a hood, it's a hood, it's a roof panel. It's one of those fiberglass roof panels that has come loose from Rich's car. But again, these cars can basically run without bodywork, so there's no problem there. Bill Tenney Jr. and the V14 of Ben Benedict do battle for an instant as they head northbound into the third turn of the leader's 162nd lap. That leader continues to be Rance Harmon. Harmon is now playing clearly the game of survival. We are midway through the 14th minute. Midway through the 14th minute as we see Jack Dandy go into the pit area. The 14th minute of the second hour of this 3-hour race. Speedrome scoring tells us that the leader of the event is Rance Harmon at the number 16. In second spot is the number 14 of Rich Fenwick. Fenwick is 5 laps down. In third place now is Leonard Basham, one of the drivers that ran into earlier trouble. Basham now is probably no longer in third place. He had been 6 laps down before he got involved in that collision that cut down a tire. A 4-car chain reaction crash in turn number 2. The 23 of Kenny Payne, the number 8 of Curtis McMurtry, the number 34 of John Abney, and the number 66 car, all involved in that chain reaction wreck. Ken Carpenter now gets his car limping out of the way. As we see it, this is your top 4 is given to us by the Speedrome scoring folks. The leader is still the number 16 of Rance Harmon. At the intersection, watch out the number 14 of Rich Fenwick. There's a whole bunch of guys coming through like Bill Tunney Jr. Again, the leader is the number 16 of Rance Harmon. In second place, we would have the number 14 of Rich Fenwick, 4 laps down. Third place, the number 54 of Bob Stute, 11 laps down. Fourth place would have been Jack Dandy's car, but again, he has dropped out of the race, made a pit stop, and we do not see the cars return. Jeff Rich's car, missing many body panels, has now gone into the pits. Coming back out of the pits and onto the racetrack is number 3 of Charlie Reed. Watch out of the intersection for the slow-moving number 31 of Larry McIntyre. And we see that Rich Fenwick, who had been one of those guys who was trying to run in the lead group, has now dropped back. Although, does Fenwick have a forward gear? Yes, he does. Because of the problems to the guys that had been running up with him, I'm sure that Fenwick probably still has second spot. Slowing down to the intersection and hit by Leonard Basham is Bill Tunney Jr. Now Basham's car is slow as he finally gets the machine to go with power. To finish the 16th minute of the second hour of this race. There's a phalanx of cars that's lined up at the intersection trying to go through. As we see Robbie Loving say 16 show a shower of sparks as he tries to get through. Now 3 cars have stuffed each other in turn number 2. Dwayne Lee, the 50, the number 66 of Carpenter, and Ron Cross. Now the number 3 of Charlie Reed has run over the number 75 of Chris Linkus as they slowed at the intersection for other traffic. Those cars appear to be disabled to a certain degree. And now it's Charlie Reed's number 3, which will not move. No, he finally gets it going. Will he stay on the racetrack or pull into the pits? He'll stay on the racetrack. Reed's spent a lot of time in the pits, and that's probably ruining his chances of winning, although, again, anything can happen in the 3-hour figure-8 endurance contest. There are 2 cars on the racetrack that are not moving, but they're out of harm's way for the most part, as Leonard Basham slows in the intersection and now gets going again. 23 of Kenny Payne and the number 8 of Curtis McMurtry are in the south section of the intersection, in the teardrop as we call it, but still able to go. But not able to go, rather. As we see another car ready to come onto the racetrack, and that's John Dawsey in the 74. We check our list of alternates. Well, there's the number 50 of Dwayne Lee, hitting the number 02 and tossing him into the air, and then getting nailed by the 30 of Guy Strode. Dwayne Lee was cutting from left to right, going northbound at one of the fastest parts of the racetrack, and he ran into the car of Mike Bass and sent Bass's car flying through the air. Bass can keep on going, but Dwayne Lee's car is disabled, but it's out of the way, only able to run in reverse gear, tearing off the bodywork on the right side. We are halfway through the 18th minute of the second hour of this race. We have had cars tossed into the air, flipped upside down, crashed and wrecked, head on and tail on, but so far everything is still going with only 1 red flag as Dwayne Lee leaves the track with a flat tire on the left rear, for the right rear rather. Through all of this, Rance Harmon takes his time. At this moment, he has the race in hand, with something in the range of a 6-lap lead over the field as John Connor comes back onto the racetrack. We're moving into the 19th minute of the second hour of this race. Rance Harmon has the advantage as Jack Dawsey Jr. and Mike Champagne are in close quarters. Bill Frazier at the intersection has to repeat the south loop because he tried to cut in front of most of the field. And again, Rance Harmon takes it easy. Jeff Rich comes back onto the racetrack with a lot of bodywork ripped off, and the same is true for Charlie Reed. He's back on the racetrack, but most of his bodywork is intact, and I'm sure that his nerves are frazzled. Onto the racetrack now is one of our alternates. We see that Kenneth Allen has gone to the racetrack. That means that we should have also gone through alternate Kent Krimmel, but we glance to the race field and we don't see him out there right now. We have now completed 1 hour and 20 minutes of this race. And we have given 59 drivers and cars a chance to run. We have gone through the 31st alternate, Kenneth Allen, who is now on the racetrack and trying to go. Big jam up at the intersection. Watch out, Larry McIntyre and Robbie Lotting, and the leader has been hit. The leader has been hit. The number 16 of Harmon has been hit, and somebody spun in a cloud of smoke in turn number 1. And look at this Pier 6 brawl with cars stuck and stopped all over the place, trying to get restarted. Rance Harmon, the leader, was hit, and now we've got cars that are all over the place, and the yellow has come out. There was a big pile of cars. What happened was that at the entrance to the first turn, a car spun and it put up a shower of smoke. There was nothing there other than smoke. But as a result of the smoke, the drivers could not see, and they all jammed together. So the number 10 machine of Scott Martin was the one that had some of the bodywork ripped off, but everybody kept on going. Now, what about Rance Harmon? We understand that Rance Harmon has decided to take this opportunity. Speedrome scoring as he finished off with the 28th minute of the second hour of this race. And as we prepare to go to green here in a lap or so, we are now moving down to the halfway mark. Score it right now. Mark it at 1 hour and 30 minutes into the 3-hour figure eight endurance contest. The field is turned to green. It is a gradual green, a cautious start for the leader, Rance Harmon, as for a moment he is racing with John Dawsey. They come to the intersection, which is clear for the guys in the front of the pack. Basham lets Dawsey go. He tiptoes through the inner field and he sees the car of Charlie Reed pass him. He takes his time with cars stopped 3 abreast of the intersection looking for room and picks his way through the holes that they leave. Back onto the racetrack is Dave Miller, a driver that has had more than his share of problems this evening. Involved in a couple of crashes, a couple of spins, and now he puts Bill Clark almost into the first turn wall. Perhaps the problems of Miller are not entirely accidents. Moving into the 32nd minute of the second hour of the race, John Dawsey almost spins the car coming off of the fourth turn. Again, that odd pattern that constantly develops where the balance of the field is stuffed into one half of the racetrack. There are 4 drivers that have pulled away from the balance of that pack. Charlie Reed, who has been a leader of the race. Rance Harmon, who is the leader. John Dawsey, who has not been that close to the lead. Bill Freedrome's got caught up by everybody else there at the intersection. And now 2 cars in a cloud of smoke have crashed on the southbound approach to the infield. One of them is Bill Teddy Jr. in the 9. The other one, I cannot get the number at this point. It's a red car. We put the glasses on it. It is Miller again. Miller has bounced off just about everything between the walls and the walls themselves. Oh, has the leader been taken out in a crash? Has that Rance Harmon over there involved in that big wreck? The answer is yes. Rance Harmon, the number 69 of Algren, the number 74 of John Dawsey, and the leader has been hit in a crash, a chain reaction wreck in turn number 2. Harmon gets out of that fast. So do Dawsey and Algren. There are 2 cars that are now stuck back at the accident scene. Vertikovsky in the 101, and Harmon goes into the pit area. And it's another chain reaction crash, a big one, involving a dozen cars, virtually blocking the track in turn number 3. And it's the best possible thing that can happen to Harmon, because he can make his stop and get out of the way. Disengaging themselves, Jim Coop, Robbie Loving, Ken Algren, Ray Gaddis, Charlie Reed, John Dawsey in his second crash. He was involved in the situation that took out Rance Harmon. There goes the number 31 of Larry McIntyre, the 54 of Bob Stute, leaving only the car of John Dawsey and showing smoke as he tries to get restarted, the alternate number 44 of Jerry Brown. So the bad luck that has plagued others at the Indianapolis Speedrome now has finally, for the first time here tonight, really seriously hit Rance Harmon. And the immediate benefactor of this will be in number 14, Rich Fenwick. Could this be a replay of that surprise finish of a few years ago? Orange exterior, after in an unending story of drama and thrills on the southeast side of Indianapolis. There are 2 races that are run here every year, which are races that those that are experts in this sport say were impossible to run, that the format could not be made to be feasible, that it was too unpredictable, that nobody would ever go for it. But you race fans have gone for the 3-hour figure-eight endurance contest since 1977. And next week, the race fans will go for the Indy Mention 500. The reserve seat and general admission advance tickets for the Indy Mention 500 are now on sale in the pit office. For a moment. Just a moment. Just a moment. Picked up a fault in the A35 unit. That's a joke for your science fiction fans. And anyway, for just a moment, we are enjoying a small rest. And that's all it is, just a small moment for these drivers, crews, and everybody else to relax. The crews watch their cars out on the racetrack and wonder what's going to happen next. We see that there's a temporary number on the side of the number 50, so we know what that car is. Quick job with spray paint. Ready to restart. Where is Rance Harmon? Where is the leader of this race? He's caught up in a big pack of traffic. As Oza Hoosier is on the track, Oza is the 32nd alternate of this race. Hoosier gets maybe 1/3 of a lap through his first lap under green and gets hit and spun out. Welcome to Speedrome Racing, Oza Hoosier. For Rance Harmon, it is a series of dilemmas. How hard do I run? I have tried to take it easy. I have been hit hard twice and sent to the pits. Do I try to match the pace of the other cars on the racetrack? Or do I try to take it easy? My lead is maybe 3 or 4 laps. How hard do I run? How hard do I run? 3 cars in a crash. Cecil Carr on top of Larry McIntyre's machine and carried along. Ken Carpenter backwards now gets his car out of the way. The intersection now crowded, now empty. Now we've got Rance Harmon in a collision with the number 50 of Dwayne Lee, who keeps on going. Harmon looking for room at the intersection, and there's just barely there some room. All over the intersection, there are cars clotted at the crossover. Are they all going to be able to get through that intersection? Not moving as Mike Champagne until the last instant, and now it's clear. And there are cars scattered all over that crossover, some moving fast, some moving slow, including our friend Mr. Miller. And also Rance Harmon, who gets through the intersection, holding on to the lead. In the 40th minute of this second hour of this race, as we see Ben Benedict coming into the pit area. And Rance Harmon, through all of the travails and trials and tribulations, has finished 201 laps. He comes down to finish the 202nd circuit, running with the Michigan and Bob Stoops. Almost getting into the side of Charlie Reed, who has contours of that bodywork that nobody could have expected. Collision coming out of turn number 4. Cecil Carr climbs up on top of Bill Clark's machine. Leonard Basham tries to avoid that and almost runs into Guy Strode, who in turn was trying to avoid a crossover confrontation. Guy Strode will come into the pit area. Rance Harmon is also almost taken out by a phalanx of 3 cars. Bill Clark recovers from the crash with Cecil Carr. That is Cecil's 3rd encounter with a machine that saw 1 car up in the air. And we see that Bill Clark has come not into the pit area, but remains on the track. But now Cecil Carr has himself a flat tire and will be forced to go into the pit area. Well, Mike St. John almost colliding with Leonard Basham at the intersection, and that in turn almost took out the race leader, Rance Harmon. Again, we are not making this up. Well, there's Leonard Basham almost crashing into the side of the number 86 of Bill Clark as Basham went wide through the intersection. None of what we are describing to you is exaggerated in any way. The confrontations, the near crashes, the almost disasters that we tell you about from second to second are in fact happening every moment at the Indianapolis Speedrome. The action is literally too fast to watch. Back onto the racetrack, the number 98 X of Rosa Hoosier. Next alternate who will be eligible is J.R. Harris, the 16X. You see smoke from the number 44X car. That's Jerry Brown. He keeps on going. And the number 75 of Chris Linkus is back on the racetrack. At the intersection, sliding sideways, and again almost crashing into the leader, is the number 23 of Kenny Payne. Payne is backwards to the crowd as they head northbound, and now gets out of the way and comes to complete the lap. Is the official verdict of things from the Indianapolis Speedrome scoring. Rance Harmon is the leader, and his advantage over the second place car of Rich Fenwick is 4 laps. It is a 4-lap gap, as there's the 98 of Leroy Young spinning through the intersection in a cloud of smoke. The crowd comes down on Leroy Young, and he just barely gets out of the way. Again, Leonard Basham has a lead as we see a flat tire on Mike Burgess's car, and he limps to the pit area. I'm following him through as Miller. Once again, the lead that Rance Harmon has on the number 14 of Rich Fenwick is 4 laps, and Harmon is closing down on Fenwick to try to make it 5. In 3rd place is Bob Stoops, and that is a gap of 7 laps. In 4th place is Leonard Basham. That is a gap of 9 laps. We see that Bill Frazier's number 5 is just come back through the pit gate and stalled. But that is not enough to justify a yellow flag. Will continue to race under green. Billy Allen has finally gotten onto the racetrack in the numbers A77 car. We are now closing to the finish of the 43rd minute of the 2nd hour of this race. At the intersection, Rance Harmon is in a 2-car chain reaction crash. He was hit by the car of Ken Carpenter, and then in turn, he got into the side of the car of Dan Gaddis. Another chain reaction crash involving Rance Harmon, and he keeps on going. Gaddis in the 44 car has slowed down. Carpenter is still going at pretty much full speed. And there's a flat tire on the car of Jerry Brown as he tries to limp through the infield and get through to the intersection, and the yellow has come out. The yellow has come out, mainly for Bill Frazier's number 5. And for the leader, Rance Harmon, the tension must be overwhelming. Now here's something that's even more bizarre that's happened on the racetrack. As we see the number 14 of Rich Fenwick do something strange. Instead of, now Fenwick's done something out there that is could be an error that could cost him a big lap. It's the same thing that Wayne Arnold did that cost him a 3-hour race a couple of years ago. Fenwick came southbound. Instead of going through the south loop and finishing the lap, he cut directly to the left and joined the back of the pack. That has cost him a lap to Rance Harmon. It is a key error, and if Harmon runs into any more trouble, it could cost Fenwick the race. Now, here's what we were going to point out to you. We have gotten a note, and I don't believe this one. There's a dark green Dodge van that had been parked someplace near the Speedrome, but in the last half hour, Rance Harmon has been involved in 3 crashes. 2 of those crashes have sent him to the pit area. The most recent one was the one in which he got in a crash at the intersection with not only the number 66 of Carpenter, but a second machine whose number I forgot. It's been so much action, I forgot the 3rd car that was involved in that wreck. In any case, the restart is now at hand, and Rance Harmon is back up in front where he had been earlier. We restart the race. Harmon finishes his 214th lap, and we are halfway through the 47th minute of the 2nd hour of this race. Bill Tunney Jr. is back onto the racetrack. More and more dense in that car, and he has to wait for the entire field to go through the intersection. Tunney gets the hole, cuts southbound, and sees a half-dozen cars fly by him. He does not look that enthusiastic. Tunney's more looking for a place to go so he can pick up the race, and he loses another lap to Rance Harmon. And every time Harmon gets onto the racetrack, somebody wants to race with him. This time it's Charlie Reed, who was earlier racing with Harmon for first spot. And here's Charles Coles in the number 76 that's having some fun. Somebody has leaked a lot of water or oil on the entrance to turn number 1. Let's see if that car is still out there and we can pick it up as we see the car of J.R. Harris, the 16X is out there. He's the 33rd alternate. And there's John Abney spinning through the infield. Well, whoever it was that leaked down onto the racetrack, no problem now. Leonard Basham and Mike St. John, like vultures, swoop down on Rance Harmon and pull him away. Again, I'm sure that Harmon is letting that happen, figuring that if he takes it easy, that he'll be in a better chance to hold on to the victory. Mike St. John at the intersection holds up. Leonard Basham at the intersection holds up. Charlie Reed tries to pass them all. Rance Harmon sticks his nose into the middle of that and then backs away. Coming out of the intersection, they look at the car of Steve Reidner. There is the 77 of Mike Burgess making a right-hand turn, and Donnie Garrigus is spun out as he heads to the southbound run. Small crossover crash between the number 02 of Mike Bass and the number 66 of Carpenter. Carpenter's sideways and not moving as the southbound traffic charges on through, and now Carpenter picks up the pace once again. Oh, Lord, my heart, how long can I hold out? We've got an hour and 11 minutes to go in this madness. And Rance Harmon finds he is being passed by the number 14 car of Rich Fenwick. That is an important pass. It would have been even more important if Fenwick had not cost himself a lap by failing to finish the south loop. Crossover crash involving J.R. Harris and the car of Bill Clark. They're going the wrong way on the southbound run. They now get disengaged and continue to roll. The cars of Ray Gaddis and Ken Carpenter have collided as they both tried to get into the pit area at the same time, I guess. Carpenter backs away. Gaddis now rolls into the pit area, and even worse than that, we see the number 77 of Mike Burgess has come to a stop, blocking the pit exit. I'm not sure if he actually ran into the wall there or what. So the combination of the 3 events has brought out a yellow as our medical people are out there very quickly to check out Mike Burgess in his car. Now we've got ourselves a little crossover disagreement involving Loving and Harris and the car of Charlie Reed. For the return of Rance Harmon. It's very important now to determine whether Rich Fenwick is going to be able to take over the lead as a result of Harmon's stop. It had been 4 laps, now it's 3. Now it's probably coming down to 2 laps, I believe. A 2-lap advantage for Robbie, for Harmon over Fenwick, unless the stop is very fast. is back to green, and we see no indication that Harmon is coming back onto the racetrack. Here is John Abney coming back onto the field. And we are about ready to have our first lead change in something like an hour and 20 minutes. Very shortly, Rich Fenwick on laps will take over first spot. We glance down toward the pit area, and we see no sign of Rance Harmon. And it could be 1984 all over again. And pretty soon we're going to be to the circumstances where Rich Fenwick will be in the lead of this race. Now Rance Harmon comes onto the racetrack, and what we have to do is determine, are they on the same lap? Is Fenwick on the lead, or is Harmon trying to hold off Fenwick? We're going to have to figure this out as quickly as we can. Harmon is on the racetrack, so is Fenwick. But who has the lead? Again, we're waiting for the Speedrome scorers to give us the precise definition. We see that J.R. Harris has now taken his car into a position of temporary rest on the backstretch. We're now due to see alternates like John Welliver and Claude Hopper and Lee Patchett on the racetrack. Again, we're standing by as we close out the second hour of this race to get the definitive ruling from our Speedrome scorers as we see Bob Stute pull off the track and Charles Cole spin to get the definitive ruling on the leader of this race. We want to double check and be absolutely certain as we see John Connor out of the race. Now you see that the number 14 of Rich Fenwick has slowed at the intersection, and I get the feeling this is more than just a small problem, that Fenwick actually have a problem at the intersection again. We want to double check and be absolutely certain of which driver is leading the race. It could be Fenwick. Well, there's Fenwick almost running into his part-time teammate Mike St. John. But you have Fenwick and the number 16 of Harmon running nose to tail. Now into the wall, going through turn number 2, and almost riding up on top of the wall, you've got the car of Jerry Brown. Brown gets himself disengaged and will continue rolling. At least he's trying to get himself disengaged now. Barely gets it off the wall. Again, you have Harmon closing up on the number 14 of Rich Fenwick as they go through the first and second turns. Indications are that Harmon is still in the lead. Our unofficial indications are that Harmon has a lead of maybe a lap or two. But again, we want to double check this, and we're waiting for our scores to give you this indication so we're absolutely certain. As we see the hood start to come up on Robbie Loving's car, our indication from our Speedrome scorers is that Harmon still has the advantage by 3 laps. Our indications are, we are told now by Speedrome scorers that we move into the 58th minute of the second hour of this race, and see that alternate John Welliver is on the track. Indications are the leader is still Rance Harmon in the number 16, and we are told that Harmon has a 3-lap advantage over Rich Fenwick. They are told that Harmon has a 3-lap advantage over Rich Fenwick. That the third place car is Leonard Basham. That Basham in the 9 car has a 6-lap deficit to make up, and in 4th place, 7 laps down, is Bob Stute. Stute may have lost a lap or so by his last pit stop. But again, our Speedrome scores tell us as we close down at the end of the 58th minute of the second hour of this race, a quick flash of fire underneath one car on the racetrack. I think that's Vertikovsky's machine. Yeah, Vertikovsky's 101 showed a quick flash of fire underneath the car and is almost hit at the intersection. Looks, there's a big leak out of Oza Hoosier's car. I'm not sure if that's oil or water, but it's going to be a skating rink as the fast cars charge into turn number 3. There's Charlie Reed, full power. He slides on it, but he barely gets through. Here's the rest of the cars going over Oza Hoosier's hazard and a crash headed southbound involving the car of Robbie Loving, who had that hood coming up, and the 98 of Leroy Young. And now you see the Al Grindy car is slid. There is Robbie Loving limping his car off the track, but it appears that Leroy Young's machine has been disabled by that wreck, and the yellow has come out. Oza Hoosier had something break loose and dump a major league amount now away. One hour to go. 59 minutes and 56 seconds to go. The time inexorably falls away. The wreckers do their inevitable job and pull Dave Miller's machine, and they push Leroy Young's, or they plan to push Leroy Young's. The chess players call endgame, the beginning of the conclusion of the 3-hour figure eight endurance contest at the Indianapolis Speedrome, with the unexpected still some short distance ahead.
I think they're running out of coal. Surely they ought to be running out.
Running out of sheet metal. Now there's some lined up back there getting ready to come out.
Yeah, they keep the best.
Hey.
Out of the pits, Kenny Payne, Charlie Coles, Kenneth Algren, and the 14 of Rich Fenwick. Fenwick, the second place car. By my very rough estimate, he is now 4 laps down. Also, the number 6 of Jeff Heiser, 10 Scott Martin, 86 Bill Clark. All brave warriors who have been marked and scarred by this battlefield that is called. Now we're told to watch carefully one of those cars out there for a potential leak. I think they're talking about the number 69 car, Ken Algren.
He just came out.
As we see the car of the younger Gaddis pull off the racetrack, the green is displayed. Rance Harmon continues to have that advantage of about 4 laps as we see Bill Clark pull back off the racetrack. Leonard Basham comes back onto the track. So does Jack Dandy. And Donnie Garrett's. Vertikovsky goes only a short distance in the 101. Oh, that car is stalled. Okopsky, we see smoke coming from the carburetor. That's an indication that he's got big problems. And Okopsky is not moving. There's Ken Carpenter side by side. Harmon leads 4 laps over Fenwick. 3rd place to Stu as Okopsky finally gets his car running. Well, Harmon sideways out of turn number 2. Let's see if that car is running properly. No, it's not. Harmon goes off the racetrack. Harmon had the car brake sideways out of turn number 2. It appears, let's see, was that a flat tire? Flat tire on the left rear. Flat tire on the left rear. Now, here's the completion of 1 lap. Fenwick is now 3 laps down. Fenwick is now 3 laps down. Fenwick heads northbound as the crew sets to work on the car number 16 as we see Ray Gaddis come off the racetrack. Here here they come to the line. And as I see it, Fenwick is 2 laps down. As I see it, Fenwick is 2 laps down. Now, the battle between the pit crew and the battle on the racetrack as Fenwick goes for the lead in the 3-hour figure-8 endurance contest at the Indianapolis Speedrome. And the race could change on a flat tire. Now here he is, cutting the lead to a 1-lap deficit. A 1 lap down. Rich Fenwick is 1 lap down. Now, as soon as they go past that pit exit, Fenwick is going to be on the lap with the leader. Now, here he is, coming through turn number 3 and 4, completing lap number 245. There is Rich Fenwick on the same lap with the leader, sliding through the intersection, almost getting caught up, and crashes the number 76 of Charlie Coles, and he'll get out of the way. And now we watch him as he goes through 3 and 4. Here is the new leader of the 3-hour figure-8 endurance contest. Rich Fenwick is now in front. Crossover crash. 4 cars. Chain reaction. Leonard Basham, Jack Dandy, Dwayne Lee, and the number 30 of John Wolliver. And this yellow could be a hard send for Rance Harmon because it keeps Rich Fenwick from running away. Those 4 cars in the crossover crash were Jack Dandy, Dwayne Lee, the car of John Welliver, and a 4th machine who has managed to pull away. But in that period before the crossover crash, Rich Fenwick became the 6th leader of the 3-hour figure-8 endurance contest. And ladies and gentlemen, as we move to check the condition of Jack Dandy inside his car, and as Dwayne Lee gets out of his crippled machine, we have a race. At first, we are going to make a check of Jack Dandy in the 4J car to find out his condition. At the same time, our Speedrome scorers will check the record to see the number of laps that have been completed by the various drivers, as Leonard Basham, the 4th driver who was involved in that crossover crash, continues to circulate on the racetrack. 4 now 5 people are over at the car of Jack Dandy. Now 6 over there checking on Dandy to find out his condition. The lead paramedic is over there attending to him. There is another one on the other side of the race car. Bit by bit, inch by inch, Jack Dandy gets out of his ruined machine. The car is damaged, but Dandy appears to be okay.
Why'd you take 779?
And the disappointed John Welliver, who immediately went to the pit area. Fenwick made under the yellow is paramount because it is a 1-lap advantage now that would have been a disadvantage. Scoring confirms that it is a 2-lap advantage for Rich Fenwick over Rance Harmon. Speedrome scoring confirms that it is a 2-lap advantage for Rich Fenwick over Rance Harmon. Harmon gets into the car of Steve Reidner in his rush to try to get back to the front. And Fenwick, for the first time, can taste the joy of the lead at the Indianapolis Speedrome. But the leader's joy is all too often the leader's dilemma. Fenwick uses up every inch of the racetrack, carries excessive speed into turn number 3 on his lead lap, the 254th lap, and closes up on the 13th minute of the final hour of this race. 47 minutes ahead for Rich Fenwick, which will either be 47 minutes to victory or 47 minutes ahead to a bitter defeat. Alternate Al Rackley is now on the racetrack. Alternate Jerry Moore is now on the racetrack. They find themselves immediately swarmed up in the maelstrom. Only alternate Ron Spears finds himself immediately able to pick up to speed. In the middle of this, trying to tiptoe around the racetrack, you have Rich Fenwick, who finds himself following Mike St. John through turn number 1. St. John, the driver who at one point was one of a quintet of competitors who was snarling and fighting for the lead, now was out there simply to try to save face. But for Rance Harmon, it is a more difficult proposition. Harmon finds himself 2 laps down, and also a 2-lap advantage over the number 9 of Leonard Basham, who is 4 laps down to the leaders. Now St. John peels off to one side to avoid a crossover crash, and there goes Fenwick into the lead. If I was Fenwick, I would be tempted to let Mike St. John open the holes for me to serve as a blocking back, but St. John will not do that for the time being. Through number 3 and 4, there is the crossover, there are the cars, and there is Fenwick, who eases off and lets everybody charge on through. Fenwick comes to the intersection. There is a crowd there, and he tiptoes through the intersection just barely. St. John is racing with Fenwick. This is something that Rich may not want to do. There are 2 lines of thought in this manner. One line is you see Jerry Moore crunch Ray Gaddis in the intersection. Moore just drove into Gaddis and wrecked the right rear of that car. And Moore tries to keep on going after he wrecks Ray Gaddis in the intersection. And we now have fewer than 45 minutes left to go in this race. Let's watch the decision of our race officials as Ray Gaddis's crippled, disabled car sits very close to the hot part of the intersection. And now, almost hitting him, is the car of Charles Coles. There is Jeff Rich, who almost crashes into Gaddis. As we see the Jerry Moore car now drive into the pit area 2 laps after he wrecked Ray Gaddis in the intersection. We watch for the relative position of the leaders. The racetrack stays under green as Bob Stute goes through there. Al Rackley spins, and he's nailed by Jeff Rich. And now the 02 car runs over Charles Coles and flies into the air, and the yellow finally comes out. The 02 car airborne for the 2nd time tonight as Mike Bass ran over and collided with the number 76 of Charles Coles and was tossed into the air. Now we check out Al Rackley, who got hit in the right side by the number 69 of Jeff Rich. And Rich has been involved in more than a few wrecks tonight. Check the condition of Kenny Rackley. I'm sorry I misidentified him as Al Rackley. It was Kenny Rackley. Here's again the way it looks at Indianapolis Speedrome scoring. The leader in the number 14 is Rich Fenwick. Your 2nd place driver is the number 16 of Rance Harmon, 2 laps down. In 3rd place is the number 9 of Leonard Basham, 4 laps down. In 4th place is Bob Stute, the number 54, 8 laps down. So the story of the race is now this. Our concern and our attention is paid to the Kenny Rackley car, which was in the crossover crash with the 69 of Jeff Rich, getting hit in the right side. Rackley slowly, uncomfortably, is taken out of the car, placed on his own 2 feet, and gradually walked over to the ambulance. Looks like you may have heard of this event. Again, your lead contenders are in the middle of the pack. And look at Rich Fenwick get the jump on the restart and close his gap to Rance Harmon down to 1 turn to put him 2 laps down. The leader, Rich Fenwick, is on his 267th lap. Frazier, who had been towed off the track earlier, is at the intersection. He and Al Grindy are passed very quickly by Leonard Basham. And remember, Basham is 4 laps down. Watch the intersection as Basham and Mike St. John dice with Cecil Carr. And somehow they all keep on going. Once again, let's set the circumstance. The leader is Fenwick. 2nd place is Rance Harmon, 2 laps down. 3rd place is the car of Leonard Basham, 4 laps down. Basham had his flat tires and his crashes, has persevered and stayed on the racetrack and is piling up the laps. And once again, it is very important to note that of your lead cars, as we see the 40th alternate Dave Rodriguez on the track, of your lead cars, that 2 of them are from the Sportsdrome, and only 1 of them is from the Indianapolis Speedrome. Bob Stute, the Michigan invader. Watch out, Leonard Basham. There is Chris Lincas. We almost had green on green all over the track. Once again, the leaders are 1 Speedrome driver, 2 Sportsdrome regulars, and 1 Michigan invader. Watch the field as they go through the 24th minute of the last hour of the race. Al Grindy leaves the track. The leader, Rich Fenwick, has closed in on Rance Harmon. Fenwick, with ease, goes to the inside. Oh, he's almost had Steve Reiner hit by the 44X car. In the meantime, Fenwick has moved up and passed Rance Harmon and has put Harmon 2 laps down once again. Now they come to the intersection. There's Mike St. John, almost getting hit side by side with the car of Rich Fenwick, but everybody keeps on going. We move up to Larry Harris, the ASA star in the 84X is now on the track. And Fenwick is able to pull away from Rance Harmon. So much performance differences at the intersection. Harmon almost gets caught up by Basham. Fewer than 36 minutes of racing time remaining. Well, there's a huge pileup, a massive crash in turn number 1. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12 cars involved in this massive pileup in turn number 1. Backing out of it, you've got Champagne, Coles, and Abney. Also trying to get out of it as the yellow come out. You've got the 13 of Carr with the number 39 of Cross just now disengaging themselves. You've got the number 6 car, the number 73 of Rodriguez, the 39 of Cross, the number 02 car was involved in that as well. That's the machine of Mike Bass. We had the number 6 of Butch Campbell involved. Everybody's managed to get disengaged from this big wreck. Watch out, Mike Bass! He almost pulled into the middle of everybody there. That's no way to go. Restart. The restart comes with 33 minutes and 16 seconds left to go. This time, Fenwick gets a clean break for the rest of the field. He had It's northbound, watching out for Robbie Loving. And now onto the racetrack, you have alternate number 43, Dave Knaus in the 64X car. Also on the racetrack is Manny Aguilar in the 42nd alternate machine. The intersection this time will favor Fenwick, as you see the Ben Benedict car going to the inside of Rich, who may be taking it easy. And Mike St. John goes through there as well. St. John and Fenwick move almost in tandem around Robbie Loving's car, as Charlie Reed is also in place to have some fun. We're moving through the closing laps of this race, and we watch every moment for advantage or disadvantage, for the strategic dynamic changes in this event that could decide who will win. It can come down to something as simple as a small collision, a piece of metal on the track, a flat tire, a spin, or a stall. And those small things could make the difference in this event. Rance Harmon's car, we're looking at it now and trying to get the feeling if there's something wrong with the machine. It leans very far over to one side as he bounces off Kenny Payne's car, and as Mike St. John barely avoids the car of Joe Jackson in the intersection. Let's watch Rance Harmon go through the turn. He's got apparently either a soft tire or maybe a shock or a spring that's going down on the right front of the car. That would indicate the performance disadvantage that Harmon may have, and that would almost a three-car crash involving Coles, Abney, and Reed, as you see Leonard Basham easily go to the inside and pass Rance Harmon. So obviously there is a flaw with the car of Rance Harmon, and as a result he is off the pace and not able to keep up to the speed of the others on this track. As Harmon cuts through the intersection and finds some room, and as Mike St. John watches out for the 23 of Kenny Payne, as we get some of that occasional gridlock as you get on this racetrack. Here is our indications, and now things are getting interesting. The new contender for the lead would appear to be Leonard Basham in car number 9. Our latest scoring indications, we've got ourselves another crash of the crossover. This time it is the number 66 car and the number 44X. Ken Carpenter and Jerry Brown have hit each other in the intersection. Carpenter crawls away right in front of Charlie Reed. Brown's machine is not moving, and it is crossways around the track. Brown has done it again. Here comes the field. And the yellow comes out, and the yellow comes out. And Brown, I think, has got to be one of the leaders tonight in bringing out cautions. And now things are interesting, because our Speedrome scorers indicate now Leonard Basham drove right past the number 14 of Rich Fenwick. Yellow, and is going to be held. I am not sure. We're going to sit back and watch for the scores and officials to work this one out. On the restart, we're getting one interesting scoring indication from our folks. They tell us that Mike St. John dropped to 15th place when he had that column that took him back for about a half hour. Now we're told that Mike St. John has managed to make up enough laps to get back to 6th place. So again, our indications are that Fenwick is in first place. In second place, Leonard Basham is about 3/8 of a lap back as he cuts between Al Grindy and the number 30 of Guy Strode. There's the number 30 of John Welliver, who's bottoming out and leaving a lot of sparks on the track. Those sparks can indicate small pieces of metal that can cut down a tire, but we'll find out shortly. And the lead is still about 3/8 of a lap. There's Fenwick looking for room in the intersection. There is only a tiny gap, and he picks it up. 26 minutes, 27 minutes, we stand corrected. 27 minutes of time left in this event. Rich Fenwick cuts through the intersection and finishes the leader's 291st lap. Obvious now that we're going to go past the 299 laps completed last year by Mike St. John when he won that race. at the intersection. Oh, Rich Fenwick is hit by the 42 of Jim Schaefer, who also spins out the number 3 of Charlie Reed. But it is Reed that is hurt in that crash as he has something leaking. Yeah, it's a radiator. And piling into Schaefer was the number 39 of Ron Cross. Schaefer coming through the intersection, hit the leader and also got into the number 3 of Charlie Reed. So that collision has now really changed the fortunes of things in the Indianapolis Speedrome, because Rich Fenwick, who was involved in that crossover crash, has had to leave the racetrack. We're now looking for Leonard Basham to see if he is going to be the driver that's going to take over the lead as the yellow comes out. Our indications are that Leonard Basham is going to go back into first spot because of that crossover crash that was triggered by Jim Schaefer. That is our unofficial indication that Basham is going to go back into the lead because of that crossover wreck. But again, we are going to have to sit back and get the lap count and find that out and give it to you. In any case, we do know that there are 25 minutes and 30 seconds left in this race, and the lead. 5th place is Bob Stute. 6th place is Mike St. John. 7th place is Cecil Carr. 8th place is Jeff Rich. 9th place is Mike Bass. And 10th place in car number 10 is Scott Martin. From Stute in 5th place on back, you have a gap of something in the range of about 15 to 20 laps minimum. But again, as we see it, Leonard Basham is in the lead, and unless Fenwick is going to come back onto the racetrack very quickly, he will fall farther and farther back in the field. As the green flag comes back, it becomes obvious that the damage to Fenwick's car has most likely taken him out of contention to win this race. As the fates and fortunes, the slings and arrows of outrageous fortune, as they call it, move us to 22 minutes left to go in this race. It is Leonard Basham who has a flat tire. Leonard Basham, the leader with a flat right rear. He goes into the pit area, and now we've got to watch Rance Harmon. Harmon will come around, and as he completes this lap, he'll be 2 laps down. Oh, how many changes could we have in the final minutes of this race? Here is Rance Harmon, who comes across the line and is only 1 lap down. Now, here is Rance Harmon in the northbound run. He is in heavy traffic, but the crossover will be clear. The pit crew is working hard on the car of Leonard Basham, but it is Rance Harmon who is going to come down and finish this lap and will be back on the lead lap. Now, as soon as Rance Harmon finishes this lap past this pit entrance, he will take over the lead. It happens. Oh, he almost got hit by Mike St. John before he took the lead. But now, Rance Harmon is the leader of the 3-hour figure 8 endurance contest in the Indianapolis Speedrome. Rance Harmon took the lead as he passed the pit exit where Leonard Basham had left. And here's Basham back on the racetrack. A soft crossover crash between Charlie Reed and the number 69 of Algren. And a 3-car crash in the intersection with Kenny Payne, the 34 of John Abney, and the 39 of Ron Cross, and the 44X machine of Jerry Brown. So as we see Charlie Reed pull off the track in the number 3, as I see it, this is the way that things are going. As I see it, we have Rance Harmon in the lead. And as I see it, Leonard Basham is 1 turn behind. Again, as I see it, these 2 drivers are battling for the lead on the same lap, 4 car lengths apart, with fewer than 20 minutes to go in the 3-hour figure 8 endurance contest. As I see it, this is a battle for the lead. Headed northbound, there's Basham going to the inside of turns 3 and 4, and as I see it, that is a change of the lead. As I see it, as they come down to finish the 301st lap, it is Rance Harmon back in the lead. There are less than 20 minutes to go in this race. It has been a constant, dynamic change of fortunes, good and bad. And now our top 2 cars, whoops, there's the car of John Wolliver getting into the number 76 of Charles Coles and spinning out Rance Harmon. Harmon trying to get his car going in the right direction. Now finds himself about 3/4 of a lap down. And Leonard Basham, who loses his advantage of 2 laps, gets back on the lead lap and passes the leader, who was then taken out by a slower car. 41 minutes and 15 seconds have been completed in the final hour of this race, as we see Dave Rodriguez stalled just short of the exit of the pits. And I still don't have any idea who's going to win this race. Nobody does until the final minutes of this event are closed down. A spin through the intersection by the 77 of Mike Burgess, and now there's the car that doesn't have much bodywork on it. That's Robbie Loving's machine, keeps on going. Now at the intersection, Rodriguez got going, and he is side slammed by another car at the intersection, which is now stalled. That is the car of Miller, who has been involved in some big wrecks tonight. And now Miller finds himself sideways to the wind and not moving. Miller in the 511 has been involved in yet another wreck, and with fewer than 18 minutes to go in this event, Miller is not moving in the intersection, but that's pretty common for him tonight. Yellow has come out. The yellow has been displayed, and as that yellow goes out, there's a difference of about 1 straightaway between first and second place cars. For the one more time, we've got to go out and get Miller's car, and we've been doing that so often, it's been like tossing out a fishing lure and recovering it on the end of a line. It is our report now as we see Rich Catron and John Wolliver on the racetrack. Oh, Miller's not going to stay out there, is he? Now we see Rance Harmon diving into the pit area. Our scorers tell us that Harmon was a lap down. Set for the restart, as Miller has been sent into the pits for some repairs. Harmon has not come out, and that'll cost him yet another lap. Again, I believe there was some sort of problem either with the right front tire or the right front suspension on that car, so now Harmon is running free with a chance to pick up some positions. There has been an incredible change of fortunes in this race, as Charlie Reed has to watch out for Dave Knaus. Rance Harmon is up in front. Rather, the Leonard Basham car is up in front. Our good friend Larry Harris, who is in the 84X and finds himself wandering around the racetrack, but wandering in a friendly way, and as we see Harmon come back onto the racetrack and losing yet another lap to Basham. Harris had predicted that it was going to be somebody who had never won before, and I had the feeling that it might be Leonard Basham, because Basham had run extremely strongly at this race in the past, but had simply run into problems so often. And Basham has had his share of problems. Those Hoosier tires that he runs, well, watch out, Canal, she almost got into Grindy. Those Hoosier tires that he has been running tonight have been cut and shredded so many times. Is it going to be yet another? Oh, the intersection, Canals almost takes out the leader and spins all around the racetrack. And now Scott Martin is hit by the car of Charlie Reed as Martin was trying to just get off the racetrack. 15 minutes of racing time remain. Again, there are 2 drivers on this race that are running Hoosier tires. They are your top 2 runners, the number 9 of Leonard Basham and the number 16 of Rance Harmon. Against the field of Goodyears, it is the Hoosiers that are out in front. At the intersection, Mike St. John tiptoes past Ken Algren, and we watch as Leonard Basham races for a moment with the number 6 car, the Anderson driver Butch Campbell, and gets away from him that way. There are just over 14 minutes of qualifying, 14 minutes of race time completed. As we see, Scott Martin has abandoned his bed-up race car and decided he'll take it easy for the rest of the night with his feet up. Scott, we don't blame you. 14 minutes of racing time remaining. 14 minutes left in this 3-hour figure eight contest as we bring out yet another alternate, Buzz Fortner in the number 26 Hex car. Miller's back out there again. Watch out, Leonard Basham, you're getting close to Miller. Here's a big pack of cars headed northbound, a big pack of cars headed southbound. Somehow they reached an agreement there, but they reach a disagreement as they hit each other going 3 wide as Algren gets into Manny Aguilar. As we watch this mad action, look, there's Algren steering. Oh, big crash! Ken Algren first ran into the rear end of Champagne, and then Kenny Payne almost drove directly underneath Algren's car, and that brings out yet another yellow. What happened was that Russ Champagne at the intersection slowed down. Ken Algren plowed into the rear of Champagne's car, and then Kenny Payne plowed full power into Algren's machine. All drivers are okay. Champagne drives into the pit area, and the other drivers look at what's left of their cars. Algren obviously doesn't feel too good about it as he kind of sits there and tries to act cool. Hey, I get like this all the time. Sure. But again, every lap run under caution is precisely what Leonard Basham wants. Every minute of this race that is completed under the yellow is another advantage for Leonard Basham to bring him to victory. This 3-hour figure eight endurance race has truly been a classic event of motorsport lead in a figure eight contest. That the dangers of the crossover, that the dynamics of what are you doing here? There's somebody pulling! And we are just about set for what could be the final restart of this event. And this could be the last restart of the race. Leonard Basham watches Ben Benedict and Bob Stute, the Michigan Invaders, and lets them have their head. Let us first make sure that Basham's car is running at full speed. The answer is obviously yes, or as fast as he wants to have it go. However, you do have the number 27 of Eddie Deal, who is definitely off the pace. And it looks as if Basham is taking his time. As it happens for so many others that have taken part in figure eight races, your main obstacle, your main enemy is not the racetrack, it is not the other cars, it is the crossover. Leonard Basham shows that intersection a lot of respect as he slows and tiptoes through it. 8 minutes of racing remaining. Leonard Basham lets Bob Stute through. Behind him you have Mike St. John and Bill Frazier. Robbie Voiles is the 51st alternate in this race. He cuts through the intersection after giving a massage to John Abney, who then is hit by the number 39 of Ron Cross. And also out Lonnie Terry, and so all 80 drivers have had a chance to run. Here is John Abney facing the wrong way at the fastest part of the racetrack. And the yellow once again comes out. Again, every time the caution is displayed, every time the caution comes out, it is good news for Leonard Basham. Will come back on. He'll be about 4 laps down when he rejoins the event. In third place, Bob Stute in the 54, 17 laps down, but in third place. Rich Fenwick has completed enough laps to stay in fourth, even though he's in the pit area. Fifth place to the still struggling Charlie Reed, who has been on and off the track after wreck after wreck. Then in in sixth place, Mike St. John, and in seventh place are left to run the final laps. Are here to run out the end of a string. We glance at the starters that are still there. Leonard Basham is still on the racetrack. So is Mike St. John. So is Rance Harmon. But that's about it as far as the starters are concerned. We are coming down for yet another restart with the machine of Cecil Carr back on the track. Remember, Cecil is running in the top 10. Under 4 minutes left to go. A brace of cars is now spilled out of the pit area as the green flag has been displayed. One of them is the car of John Walver, who comes onto the racetrack and stops. Another one of those is Buzz Fortner's machine that goes into the first turn and spins. And once again, Leonard Basham, and he takes a hit from the Dave Miller car. What is Miller going to do this time? Miller cuts across the bow of Leonard Basham's machine. Basham has to watch Miller with extreme caution in the last 3 minutes and 22 seconds of the race. Basham is now being escorted by Mike St. John and Bill Frazier, and there's Rance Harmon still out there persevering, hoping for the runner-up spot. 3 minutes left in this event. 3 minutes left in the 3 hour. We continue to watch the progress of Rance Harmon all around the racetrack. Harmon takes it very easy to the intersection as he and the car of Basham almost meet, and there's Chris Linkus storming out of the racetrack and into the pits. 2.5 minutes left to go in this event. Basham continues to take it easy. There have been a lot of drivers that he was racing with. Now he's just simply letting them go. He takes it easy, watching Eddie Deal pass by. He watches Robbie Loving. Oh, Harmon in a crossover crash, and there is Miller again. Oh, who has Miller not hit tonight? And Harmon gets restarted, inch by inch, trying to find a way through as he almost gets in there with another car, and Harmon can only get that car stably backwards. There's no such word as stably, I'm sorry. But now we are coming down to the final minute and a half of this race, as Rance Harmon, who has bounced and beaten and battered all around this racetrack, finds himself once again getting us another start. And Harmon and Basham almost meet at the intersection. A minute and a half to go in time of this race. And Leonard Basham is trying to become the second outsider to win this 3-hour figure 8 endurance contest and the second Sportsdrome driver to bring home the big trophy. The clock tells the story. I'm sure that there's probably some point at which Basham could feel he has this race clinched, but even I'm not sure where that is going to happen. 1 minute left to go in this event. And Leonard Basham may now have it in hand. He and his Hoosier tires may have this one in hand, but again, you have to watch for those last seconds. Remember, the race will end when you see the checkered flag. The point to watch for the end of the race is the checkered flag. And look at Charles Coles of the 76. The hood is flown up over his windshield. He probably can't see unless he can peek through the hole for the air cleaner. At the intersection, Dozy Doe involving Ben Benedict and the number AO2 car of Mike Bass. 40 seconds of race time left as Mike St. John is almost helped to the wall by Lonnie Terry. It is a moment of triumph that is only seconds away for Leonard Basham at the north end of the racetrack. as the count is coming down to the final seconds. The clock now reads 3 hours. The clock now reads 3 hours, and the checkered flag is displayed to Leonard Basham, the unofficial winner of this year's 3-hour figure-eight endurance contest. A flat right front tire signifies the frustrations of Rance Harmon, but this Sportsdrome driver, as he watches the field stream around him, will complete a Sportsdrome sweep of the Indianapolis Speedrome's biggest stock car prize. It is a clear victory for the outsiders from the Jeffersonville Sportsdrome, and it is a clear victory for Hoosier Tires at the Speedrome over Goodyear. For those fans that have come up from Louisville and from Jeffersonville and from Clarksville, there were 5 drivers from the Sportsdrome that came to visit us and to try to take away all of the money, and they have done just that. Field now pulls off the racetrack, our machine onto the track. There they are. The victors storm the field. The green shirts flood the surface of the Indianapolis Speedrome. It is the biggest celebration in the history of this track. It is a major league victory. It is a show of perseverance against the odds. And it is an overwhelming sweep for the Sportsdrome drivers. Someplace back in that pit area is a disappointed Rance Harmon, but he also deserves his credits because the Sportsdrome crews, the Sportsdrome team, have obliterated the Indianapolis Speedrome advantage. After 3 long hours, the crew slaving over that car to get it ready to come back into the racetrack. After that tremendous effort to get this car ready to run, the victors have come home. Ladies and gentlemen, out of the car for the first time tonight, able to hear the cheers of the crowd, the 1988 world champion of figure-eight racing at the Indianapolis Speedrome, the driver from Jeffersonville, the coal handler in the number 9, and your world champion, Leonard Basham.
Neil, I'm down here with Thelma Burgess, our Grand Marshal. She told 28 drivers to start their engines. Only one of them could win the race. Thelma, here's the trophy to hand to Leonard, and what do you have to say?
I want to say congratulations. I waited 3 hours for this.
She waited 3 hours. She said, Leonard, 3 hours of racing. Must have been hard. Did you know you had a good lead out there?
At that last lap, they told me I had a 2-lap lead on Rance, and then he got back in front, and I passed him, took a lead back, and I seen he had problems. I went around him 4 or 5 times, and then all I knew just had to finish the race.
You have a good crew, it looks like. I see all these green shirts behind you. You brought a big crowd. Here you are, your hands full, and everyone else standing around. I'm sure they could hold something for you. You got a good crowd there. You came up from Sportsdrome.
Yeah, that's what we run every week. The ranch is one up. Now I've got one that looks good for the Sportsdrome. Yay for the Sportsdrome.
How many years you been here?
I believe this is the 6th year of the Enduro, and we've been running the open competition, I guess, 8 or 9 years up here. I want to thank...
All right, there you go. The best compliment you can have. Best short track fans for racing. Leonard Basham, tonight's 1988 3-hour world figure-eight champion.
I'd like to dedicate this race to a friend of all of us, Snook. His already passed away July 9th, and we dedicate this race and everything to Snook, everybody's buddy.
All right, there you go. Let's hear it for Leonard Basham. We remind everyone, tomorrow is the tickets up front, Junkyard 100 in Muncie. You may want to go grab that, watch that. That's going to be a good race out there. Hope to see you all back next week for the Indy Midget 500.